And we start off with Superman gearing up as we get some monologue that says, here in the dark, in the moments before it begins, he tells himself, it's just another fight, a brawl like countless ones before, a contest, a game to win. Hell, for this one, everyone even got to bring their own gear. Clark brought the Knuckles. He forged them in the fortress years ago. After returning from the dead, Knuckles with miniature suns raging inside, angry suns taken from empty universes. He thought about calling them Dawn's Day Knuckles, but Lois shut that down fast. Even so, with them, he's stronger, faster, ready to throw down. He's fought in other dimensions, other universes, fought gods, titans. What's one more fight? And then the door opens. And Soup's like, what the? But before we get to this point, this starts back when Clark, Diana, and Bruce are having just a simple game night. And Soups is like, 2 spaces. 1, 2. And Diana says, womp womp, go back a row, Clark. Green is kryptonite. And he responds, kryptonite, Diana? Seriously? She says, I didn't make the rules. Oh, look, Batmobile boost. Go ahead 3 spaces. Nice. And Clark says, and why are all the power-ups bat-themed? Who made this thing? Give me the box. M. Malone. Enter Bruce. And you can see the grin on his face. Yo, Bruce Wayne is so petty. But look, this was a game night put together by Lois. And in the middle of this game night, she looks outside and says, guys, why is it so bright out? And suddenly, he's just there. Darkseid, the hero's oldest and greatest foe. Maybe the most familiar enemy they have. But this Darkseid has become something else. He isn't just bigger, stronger. He's everything. A universe of power, given form. Everywhere he looks, the city becomes his. No, Clark thinks. Not his. It becomes him. Clark can see it happening. Every particle, every molecule, every atom is now Darkseid. As they charge him, Clark tells himself, they've done this before. They've fought him dozens of times and won. But deep down, he can feel it. This is different. And when he looks at his friends, he knows they feel it too. And this shot of Darkseid is friggin' incredible. And the monologue continues, because the being out there, he exists beyond physics, and somehow everywhere at once. He's more than a god. He's all godliness. He's all magic and sorcery. He is all the wonder and terror of the cosmos. And you can see he is simultaneously just wreaking havoc on everybody. See, Darkseid has finally become what he is meant to be, the end of everything. Bruce falls first, then Diana. Now, as Clark rockets towards Darkseid at Mark 7, he hears a sound he's never heard, a horrible sound that stuns him. Stuns him so badly, he barely feels the blast from Darkseid, the blast that ends him. And Superman's like, when does this happen? And we jump to a scene where we see the Justice League in front of the Quantum Quorum. And in case you're not familiar, that's the World Forger, Time Trapper, aka I guess you would say a semi-decent Doomsday, Grodd, and Booster Gold. So Superman says it again. I said when. Time Trapper responds, it already did, Kal-El. And Soup's like, what? Just then, Batman shows him his phone, and it is a text from Lois that says, reminder, game night in 1 week, our place, no excuses. Time Trapper then takes the time to explain. He says, we of the Quantum Quorum have managed to combine our chronal powers to rewind time by 7 days. But Darkseid has already conquered the future. And right now, he's making his way back through time to this moment. Someone says, and go on, how do we stop him this time? And he simply responds, this time you don't. World Forger, show them. And he continues, the timeline before you is the history of our universe. The flame just ahead of this moment is him. We explored every variation, and no matter what you try, he consumes you and moves on. It all ends here, in this moment, with the Darkseid. Someone's like, there's gotta be something we can, and Grodd's like, nope. Green Lantern's like, nope. Booster, come on. And Booster chimes in, how? We've watched you try 1,000 things 1,000 times. You always lose. From what we've seen, there's only one thing you can do. And he says, what's that? And Time Trapper says, give up and start over. And Wonder Woman's like, what do you mean start over? And he explains, we are the most powerful temporal beings in the universe. And if we use the last bit of our energy, we might be able to, and Mr. Terrific chimes in, create a new timeline for us. You can't be serious. Time Trapper continues, very serious, Mr. Terrific. Not that long ago, a being did this very thing here, at this inflection point. Restarted you all. Restarted everything and everyone. Eventually, this timeline was reabsorbed, but for a brief period, it existed outside larger reality. And I love how they're taking a shot at the whole new 52 reset that they did. I think that's pretty cool. But look, everyone's having their issues with this because we all know how time travel is and restarts, and no one's happy with this. But Batman being Batman is like, enough. We need to understand what we're up against. Quorum, how did Darkseid become this? And Time Trapper explains, to understand him, you must understand what he seeks. Our universe is full of mysterious energies, but since its inception, its two most primal are the twin energies we call Alpha and Omega. Alpha is the energy of creation, wild and explosive. Nearly all planets with life are sources of Alpha energy, but not Apocalypse. At Apocalypse's core is an infernal machine, a heart that runs on Omega energy, the energy of conquest, absorption, control. And when Darkseid sought it eons ago, it chose him as its champion and transformed him into the enemy you have fought so many times. From that moment on, he has sought to turn Earth, reality's greatest source of alpha energy, into a new apocalypse. And so when he formed his new universe, he placed a heart of Apocalypse in its primordial Earth center. All Omega energy in that realm flows to him, making him absolute. Thus, he has become the universe's King Omega, the personification of its Omega energy, a walking singularity that transforms all around him. Batman's like, hold on, if there's a heart of Apocalypse forming at the center of our Earth right now, could we use it to transform one of us into something like him, a King Omega? Wonder Woman's like, that's an idea. And Grodd's like, a terrible effing idea. Yo, I just imagine that in Grodd's voice, a terrible effing idea. But Time Trapper's like, impossible. The heart is cosmically connected to Darkseid. It serves him only. To change that, you'd need to restart it entirely, blast it with Omega energy you don't have. And Batman says, no, but Booster does. Watchtower readings show him brimming with it from being trapped with Darkseid for years. He could use that power to blast the heart, cosmically defibrillate it. And Booster's like, I don't think you comprehend what you'd be unleashing. Batman's like, so show us, World Forger. And he does that. And he says, you must understand the heart is a living thing, sentient, reborn. It would immediately seek a champion, someone fueled by conquest, and conquest only. You all are heroes. You're, and Grodd interrupts, soft as hell. Yo, Grodd has no chill. But Time Trapper's like, even hungry and new, it would not let your kind near it. It would defend itself. It's fourth dimensional, not bound by our physics. By my calculations, it would reshape itself to test you, create a tournament. Each of these rings would be a higher level of challenge. Flash is like, we can take on some measly parademons. Grodd's like, not parademons, idiot. Each other. You would be competing with each other. Soups is like, what? And World Forger explains, yes, it would be a competition to find an ultimate conqueror among a champion. To prove you're worthy, one of you would have to defeat all the others, and then defeat the heart itself. Then, the universe will bend toward you. You will become the sole celestial entity, a being perhaps capable of facing Darkseid. Batman's like, and this person, if they do defeat Darkseid, they could bring it all back on the other side, everyone and everything lost. Booster Gold says, I mean, in theory, whoever wins should be able to reshape the universe however they want. Time Trapper's like, why are you encouraging this? And Booster's face says it all. He's like, because I saw this terror that he is. Time Trapper. I was held prisoner in that absolute realm for years, eons, and maybe the only thing that can stop him is someone like him. Time Trapper's like, fine then. Answer me this, heroes. The heart responds only to Omega Energy, the energy of conquest. Every ring you enter will test you further in strength, cunning, strategy. And to prevail, you must fill the heart's fire pits to match Darkseid's power. That means you must compete only to win. No mercy, no compassion. Can you truly do that? And as they all look around, Soups is like, forget it, we're not doing this. But as Batman and Wonder Woman go to talk to Superman and try to convince him into this, Superman thinks of something different. See, what he thinks about is the moment he charged Darkseid, and the terrible sound, the one that stopped him in his tracks. It was the sound of every heart on Earth suddenly doing the same thing, not stopping or dying, but falling into unison. People, fish, birds, bugs, the whole strange, wonderful mess of it aligning in a single rhythm, Darkseid's. So they convince Superman to do this, and they come up with a 7-day plan to make this work. And what do they do on day one? Well, they secure the villains. That way they can't be selected for this tournament. Modified T-Spheres are sent to a list of the world's most dangerous criminals. Terrific hates what they're about to do, but he also knows that this is about as fair as they can be right now. The T-Spheres re-enter the atmosphere silently, each homing on its target. Any criminal who the Watchtower assigned a power level of 6 or higher is targeted. Some are already locked up. Others are hidden from sight. All are taken off the game board. On the second day, the heroes meet with the world leaders. They select Superman to be the voice of them. And on the third day, Superman addresses the world. And he basically explains to them like, look, I am the last survivor of my planet, and I will fight to the death for this one. I will not lose, and I will not allow this planet to be destroyed or taken over by Darkseid. Everyone spends their fourth day with friends and family, just taking everything in because they know the battle that's coming up. Not everyone's going to survive. And this is going to be a battle of all battles. And on the fifth day, they prepare for the tournament. They go to war rooms, to bunkers, and secret vaults and choose their gear. Some go on the offense. Others go for strategy. A few choose defensive measures. Others, like Clark, just choose what feels right. On the sixth day, it's time. With the villains locked away and the world fortified and prepared, they set off. Many of them are selfless. Some are more complicated. Humans, aliens, gods, monsters. Over 100 of the world's heroes in all. They're friends. Many are more than friends. But right now, they're heading to compete with one another in a tournament without mercy. The closer they get, the less real it feels. And suddenly, they arrived at the passage to the center of the Earth, where the heart of Apocalypse is. Wonder Woman's like, all right, Booster, you ready? And he's like, you're joking, right? Okay, folks, let's cause a cosmic heart attack. And he blasts that thing with Omega Energy. Now, the blast is just enough to stop the heart for no more than a few hundred zeptoseconds. Blink time. But it's enough. When the heart begins again, blink, and new and terrible, the first thing it sees is them, the heroes rocketing towards it. To welcome them, it gives them each a miraculous vision. Each hero suddenly sees themselves win. Blue Beetle, Detective Chimp, Aquaman. Every single one of them feels what it would be like to become the Heart's champion, the soul god, to have the universe bend to them. No more than bend. To have it reform around their ideas, their beliefs. They see the good they could do. So much more. But just as quickly as it appeared, the vision vanishes, gives way to darkness, and they each look around to find themselves waiting at the arena gates. And just like that, the tournament is upon them. And this brings us right back to when Superman was like, what the? Because he flies in and he sees 3 gatekeepers. And they're like, get back, wait for all combatants. Those of you who crossed the gauntlet early shall move on, the rest perish. But beware, one wrong step and you may find yourself out. The contest begins at the drop of the Hell Mace. And we see Billy there who's like, well, looks like we'll finally get to see who'd win, Superman or the Captain. Oh, you're going down, Big Blue. And right as he says Shazam, the malice drops and the guy says, you may begin. Superman instantly knocks a tooth out of him. He's like, that's right, come on, pick on someone your own. And I think he was going to say size, but they're not the same size. But then he's shot in the back. And Bruce is like, Clark, get your damn head in the game. And as all of our heroes go charging in, we can start seeing all the booby traps going off. Even Adam Strange is like, tell Alana But Superman has to remind himself, this is just a game. And up ahead, Jay Garrett is racing towards the glowing portal, marking the end zone, when he steps on the trap that triggers their arrival, the Omega Demons. And you can see it is a straight bloodbath right now. Everyone is just going at it. And then, who do we see? None other than Lobo. But at this time, it's too hectic. I mean, Clark throws himself at the Omega Demons. Heat vision, freeze breath, punches. The knuckles burn. He tells himself he's doing it, competing. But if you look at him, really look, he's not. Behind him, heroes begin to cross the finish line. In the shadows, the fire pits hiss angrily. Because without even realizing it, Clark is hanging back instead of blasting through. He's clearing the way for his friends. More make it through. 5, 10. The portal begins to shrink. Clark fights on. 15 are through. The portal shrinks further. It occurs to Clark that he hasn't seen Bruce cross yet, which surprises him. If anyone was going to make it through, and then we see Bruce. Superman, focus. You need to stay sharp. All points attended as Batman is stabbed through the back and Clark is blasted off his feet. And when he looks up, he sees all the villains are there. And as Batman starts to disintegrate in front of him, he says, remember what I said. How did the villains escape? How did they get there? Clark has no time to figure it out. It only takes them moments to rush the finish line. But before Lex crosses, Lex turns to Superman and smiles. There's something in Lex's smile. It takes Clark a moment to realize that it's pity. It's a smile that says, go save a effing cat from a tree. But this? Leave this to us, Boy Scout. He thinks back to game night, to Bruce's words. His fists curl. And then, no one knows what hit them. The Titans, the Omega Demons, the heart itself. In Superman's ears is a new sound as he blasts through, like sun splitting open. But it's not the impact of his fist or him breaking the barrier of physics. It's the pounding of a single heart in his ears, his own. And as he crosses the finish line and takes the last spot, all around the fire pit singe. And you would think by now Lex Luthor of all people would know not to piss off Superman. But for whatever reason, he decides to do it anyway. But anyway, now, behold your 32 champions. Who will win and be crowned King Omega? Can you guess? And we finally get to see who's been narrating this story. And can I just warn you, things are about to get very hectic and exciting. Because it says, I can tell you the answer now if you'd like. I am the Heart of Apocalypse after all. The one who crowned Darkseid so long ago. So yes, I know who will join the ranks of the fallen. I know all the twists and turns that await them. So many, the surprises coming. Like his 3 destroyers, horsemen, from a world where his rule is absolute, monsters. And these are just some of the horrors that await. But if you want to know the real truth, the final one, I'll tell you. It's that none of them win. Not Clark, not Diana, not Marie, or Eel. None. And hold the phone. Because if you've been keeping up, you know that is absolute Superman absolute Batman, and absolute Wonder Woman. This is getting friggin' crazy. They're the horsemen of Doomsday. And it continues, because what they don't know is there is one last champion among them, the king himself. That's right, Darkseid, having taken the form of one of their own. So no, friend, the game isn't beginning. It's already over. And oh my, what is going on here? When in the world did Darkseid take over Booster Gold? Like, this is friggin' incredible. And I'm just gonna sum this up a little bit, but they're playing a little game where they have to guess, or at least state what they think the other hero would be if they weren't a hero or did not have the profession they have now. So Clark says he can see Diana as a tour guide. And Diana's like, well, Bruce, I can see you as a doctor. And he even makes a joke. He's like, a bat doctor? But then he's like, well, Clark, you'd be a president. And Clark's like, come on, you can't be serious. And Bruce is like, oh, I'm serious. But then we skip to the present time, and all the winners from the first round are now teleported to a different realm. And the Heart of Apocalypse says, and so begins the next round. This realm before us took 11 billion years to construct, but was carved inside a microscopic white hole where time moves like light. A blink and it exists, history and all. For the champions themselves, though almost no time has passed between rounds, 32 of them made it through the first gauntlet. They have had no rest, no pause for contemplation. For them, there will only be the battle, as it should be. I speak as the Heart of Apocalypse, your game master. To become the King Omega in this new universe Darkseid had to take to collect power from his kind, primordial beings, gods. Here, each of you must do the same, but from your own kind, your fellow champions. Hidden throughout this realm are some of the most powerful items in your universe. And I gotta say, some of these items are overpowered. I mean, the Woolagog and the Genie Pin can literally rewrite history and time. And for some reason, Bane's Venom reminds me of the Omnitrix. But anyway, the narration continues. This arena is a graveyard of elder gods slain by Darkseid. The items lie in their ruins. When all the items are found, the challenge is over. Whoever is holding an item at that time moves on. Whoever is not, dies. There are only 16 items hidden here, and 32 of you. By the end of this challenge, half of you will be no more. There are no rules of conduct. Nothing matters but winning. And remember this rule above all. Here, in this arena, if you follow the example of Darkseid, you shall be rewarded. Now, let the challenge begin. And I just want to point out, of all the people on here, Superman has the meanest damn look on his face because of round one. You already know he's after Lex, and they scatter. Some can sense which items are where. Hawkman senses the Claw of Horus, Cyborg the Mother Box. Others like Lex have come prepared. His suit contains more scanners than the top 10 most powerful military satellites combined. Infrared, heat, synthetic aperture radar. Within a single second, he maps the landscape, sees where every item is, and blasts off towards the power rings. But Clark is watching, and if there's one thing Clark is determined to do, it's to make sure Lex Luthor does not win. As he races after Lex, he takes a moment to slow the other villains too. This is why he's here. He tells himself, this is his part, to make sure the villains fail. All of them, but especially Lex Luthor. And he grabs this man and throws Lex right into a damn skull. But these two are not the only two going at it, because right now, Diana and Etrigan are going at it over Adam's belt. And he's like, to you, that belt should not pass. This demon spawn will kick your ass. I admit, princess, you fight well, but you are no match for. And she kicks him in his chest and says, go to hell. Now, I mean, this kick knocked him clean out. And while Diana's looking for this belt, Giganta's like, there's only room for one big girl in this challenge. And all of a sudden, a shadow even bigger than her says, "You call that big?" And it's the friggin' Joker rocking the belt. And he says, "Ta-da!" Any last words? And she's like, "Joker, what are you doing? We're on the same side." And the Joker gives this little look and says, "Oh, right, I forgot." And he steps on her. Then two other people are running. Joker legit grabs them and eats them alive. But over at the God Killer site, Plastic Man and Metamorpho are going at it. And Metamorpho actually turns to an acid and melts Plastic Man. But here comes Starro, and he's like, "Now that God Killer sword is mine, you loser." Too slow. And Guy Garrett comes out of nowhere and takes the sword and is like, "You were saying?" But close by, Guy Gardner finds the flash ring. And he says, "I mean, a man can never have too many rings, right?" And bam, he's knocked out by Harley Quinn, who says, "Ivy'll love this." Now, what the heck do you... And I'm not even gonna say what she looks like, but I'm sure you're thinking exactly what I'm thinking. And someone has some explaining to do. But look, back to this Superman fight, because he uppercuts Lex, and it is vicious. He hit him so hard, Lex started to have a dialogue. He's like, "I'm glad we have this moment, Superman, because I wanted to thank you. See, when you put us all in the Phantom Zone, I expected it to be just a cage. But what you've made it? Therapeutic. A big old cosmic couch. Beautiful, actually. And as I was floating there, I had an epiphany. And Superman's like, "I'm not interested." Lex says, "I figured." And he opens his chest piece and he goes, "You know, it's a good moment to be a kryptonite enthusiast. What with it so much more common these days." And you can see this man has all types of kryptonite in there. And he says, "I've expanded my collection plenty to choose from. Purple to drain your life force, black to steal your powers, red, pink, so many uses. But what I'm really going to use them for is to get you to effing listen for once." And he sends Superman flying. And he continues, "So here's my epiphany, Superman. I always thought I hated you because you did too much. You stop humanity from realizing our potential by saving us from failure. But I was wrong. I get that now. Because what I really hate you for, if I'm being truly honest with myself, is doing too little." And he stomps on him. He pulls out this blade and says, "So thank you for bringing me to the Phantom Zone. It was revelatory. I wanted you to feel what I felt, so I brought it to you." And he slices off Superman's right hand, which is even more crazy because I don't think it actually sliced it. I think he sent a piece of his hand to the Phantom Zone, which separated the two pieces, which is even more diabolical. But he continues, "In the form of a blade. When I arrived here in the heart of apocalypse, it gave me a vision of what the universe could be like if I won. Of everything remade in my image. I assume it did that for everyone. So what was yours, Superman? A better reality? Far better? Diseases cured? Corrupt governments eradicated? A cultural and technological paradise? Am I right? But let me guess. Your response to that vision was to reject it. Your goal, even now, is to just put everything back the way it was at the end of this." And in disgust, Lex fires shards of green kryptonite into Clark's body. And he continues, "I know how much you like to listen to heartbeats. So listen now. Do you hear them all up there? Full of longing and fear? They want your vision. Maybe they didn't in another time, but they do in this one. Because things have changed. The center has fallen apart. Everyone feels it. In this era, people are begging for a hero who will fix the problems, the wars, the death, the misery, the terror of it all. They want you to save them. What the Phantom Zone taught me is that I do too. Because deep down, you're a coward, Superman. That was my epiphany. Now excuse me while I do what you want and save the damn world. Feel free to sit back and watch." And yo, to a certain degree, I gotta say, our boy Lex is spitting right now. But look, Guy Gardner is flying by and he's like, "Gardner for the win." And Hawkman comes out of nowhere and he's like, "Actually, I believe this belongs to me." Like, this man got robbed twice. But meanwhile, Cyborg gets the mother box. And over at the Soul Taker Sword, you have Swamp Thing versus Big Barda versus Etrigan. And this is going wild. And who do you see in the background running like crazy? None other than Lobo. And he's like, look at this. I just found my own golden ticket, Venom. And Starro tries to jump her from behind. But Lobo on Venom? That's a crazy combination. He just rips Starro in half and tosses him. He's like, sorry, brother. Some get to win. Some gotta be you. And Starro says, another fact about starfish. We regenerate. And when we start seeing this many Starros, we already know what's going on. Because he attaches himself to heroes' faces, and he sends them to start getting as many artifacts as he can. And then he sends these heroes to stop the other heroes. He even sends Wonder Woman to take down Zatanna before she can find Thor's hammer. She goes to use her magic, and Starro's like, cosmic starfish are immune to magic, abracadumbass. I'm using that one in real life. But he's like, your parlor tricks don't work on me. And she responds, right by your side, Diana. Listen to my voice. He says, it doesn't matter where you are. She's mine. And she says, I'm not talking about myself, you ass. Diana, by your side. Reach down now. And Diana reaches down and grabs Thor's hammer. And just like that, Starro's out of this competition. But just then, Guy Gardner's running for Blue Beetle's Scarab. He says, okay, third time's a charm. And out of nowhere, here comes Red Hood. He's like, not so fast, Ginger. Creating Red Beetle Armory. Hey, Joker, how's this for a punchline? Harley Quinn's like, no way. I call dibs. And Joker smiles and says, man, I love when they fight over me. And I swear that picture gives me Jack Nicholson Joker vibes. But they're like, damn it, where the hell did he go? Just then, Big Barda starts screaming in agony. She says, I haven't felt pain like this since I was in the fire pits. Something hurts. And you can see Joker. He's shrunk and says, it's all in your head. And as Vixen is beating King Shark for the genie pin, Zatanna's like, we're close. Almost all the items have been found. We have to get the last few before the Legion of Doom does. And you can see Lex is on the move. Just then, someone yells, Luthor! That's payback for what you did to Superman. And Star Sapphire hits him with a construct of an entire fortress of solitude and goes to collect her prize. She says, and score one for love. She pulls her hand away from the hydraulic claw cable just in time. She says, nice try, Luthor, but I still have all the power rings. And Lex says, I did manage to snatch the only one I was truly after. She says, keep it. What good is a black power ring when there are no dead to control? And Lex gives the evilest smile ever and says, you sure about that? Now Superman, he's still feeling the effects of the kryptonite he can't get up. So Supergirl's like, Cal, here, take the mask. I'll get something. And out of nowhere, Captain Atom's like, sit your ass down. I'll be taking that, thanks. But before Superman can even call Captain Atom's name, he feels it, a rumbling. And he just knows Lex has won. One by one, Lex uses the Elder Gods to take them out. The heroes, Clark's friends. And all the while, Lex never takes his eyes off of him. And an enraged Superman thinks back to that game night where he said, I would never be a politician, Bruce. It's never even crossed my mind. And Bruce had to tell him, because you have him, Superman. And he says, what's your point, Bruce? And he says, my point is you always look to do the most good possible. That's who you are. You're a strategist, same as me and Diana, but in your own way. And you're right, your math works. But things change, Clark. That's what games like this are all about. Figuring out a new math if one is needed. And Lex is like, it's over, Superman. And the Heart of Apocalypse says, his hand throbs. His body is one long scream. He tries, though he tries to figure out some new math, some way. And then suddenly, the rules come back to him. Follow the example of Darkseid, and you shall be rewarded. The example of Darkseid, who sacrificed not just his hand, but his life to become something more. Clark thinks of the mystery item, one of the only things left unclaimed, and he grabs the kryptonite shard in his shoulder. And just before Lex brings the Elder God's foot down on his body, crushing it, Clark ends Superman. And Lex says, "Who's the real Superman now, old friend?" And just then, the dead Superman is revived. And he says, "I am Luthor. I'm Superman." And Superman is. See, the item Superman won, that mystery item, was the Omega Sanction, the power of Darkseid himself. And boy, our man Superman is out here shooting Omega beams like never before. Yo, he is looking badass. He decimates the Elder Gods, just as Darkseid did eons ago. And it feels good. He will stop them all. Luthor, Joker. Lex is like, "No, I had you beat." Superman says, "You lose, Luth." But before Clark can fire his Omega beam, Guy Gardner gets the last item. And they all hear, "Champions, all items have been claimed. The challenge is now over. Those without items are eliminated. Those of you with items in your possession, congratulations. You move on." And Lex says, "Saved by the bell. See you next round." And there you have it, the surviving 16 champions moving to the next level. They can all feel their closeness to victory. They have the taste for it now. For the fight, the competition. But the game isn't only being played here. It's being played outside the tournament as well. And in the watchtower where Time Trapper and his crew still are, he says, "The fire pits burn bright with Omega energy as our champions get closer to the center. Soon, we may have the new King Omega. There's hope. We just have to continue to hold the time barrier against Darkseid." And Booster Gold says, "Yes, unless we don't." Trapper says, "What do you mean, Booster?" And he explains, "Oh, Time Trapper, you've spent too much time with the Kryptonian. You've become soft in your old age. There's no need for a new King Omega. We already have ours. Me, Darkseid. And it's time for me to enter the arena."
So what happens here is that this kicks off before the tournament started, where Superman heads over to the Fortress of Solitude. Now, Superman goes to talk to his father because the main thing here is that he has questions about Krypton. He has questions about Darkseid. He has questions about this King Omega. To which, by the way, Jor-El is absolutely no help. He just keeps on saying, "There is no knowledge of King Omega. There's no knowledge of this in my records." But then Clark does ask this question. It's like, is it possible that not all of Kryptonian history was within the rocket? To which Jor-El responds back and says, "Some information was deemed illegal, and there are pieces of history that were never transcribed, memories that were passed down from generation to generation, ancestral knowledge, life stories that did not need to be filled. But that was all lost when Krypton was destroyed." So then Clark asks this question. He's like, "I know that you're not really you. You're just a simulation the rocket provided to give me history and comfort. So I'll understand if you can't really answer this question, but Father, why did you only save me?" To which Jor-El responds back and says, "Because your mother and I loved you and wished to save you." To which Clark is like, "Well, what about a larger shuttle?" In which Jor-El says, "Space travel had been illegal on Krypton for generations. Knowledge from outside our world was forbidden. Because of this, I was forced to build your rocket with limited resources and also in secret." But then Clark is like, "Well, what if you had unlimited resources?" To which Jor-El says, "I have no knowledge of that." So Clark's like, "Father, if you could have had the help and the resources and the ability to build more shuttles, what would you have done?" To which Jor-El responds back and says, "I would have saved everyone." And that right there is the internal conflict with Superman, and really the internal conflict that is going to continue to play here throughout the entire DCKO saga. So with that, Clark takes off. In the ensuing days here, Clark spends time with his family, spends time with Lois, spends time with Ma and Pa, and then he heads out here for the tournament. Now, the plan for the people that were left behind was that everyone would be evacuated here with these super ships. But right before they were about to exit the atmosphere, Lois gets this idea. And what she does here is that she takes a detour and she herself heads to the Fortress of Solitude. And then she starts to ask her own questions. So initially here, she's greeted by Jor-El, How can I help you, Bride of Kal-El? But Lois, she doesn't really trust Jor-El that much. And of course, she knows that he's a simulation, but either way, she doesn't trust him because of their time that they spent in space together with her and John back in the day. So she's like, I'm not really here to ask you for help. I'm here to interview you. Tell me about Darkseid and the Heart of Apocalypse. But then once again, all Jor-El says is, I have no knowledge of this. It's not in my records. But then Lois is like, yeah, I know in your archives you don't have the information, but when you're a reporter, you learn that finding out what is missing can help lead you in the right direction. Certain bits of information were illegal on Krypton, I get it, but where are the records on what was illegal? You had to know what was illegal to forbid it, right? To which Jor-El is like, there is no knowledge of this information. But then Lois, she starts pleading. She's like, listen, your son right now is in the fight of his life, frankly, doing what you could not, saving his world. You must know something. Anything about the Heart of Apocalypse, you must help him. But then what happens here is that Jor-El basically starts to glitch. He's like, there's no knowledge. There's no knowledge in our records. There's no knowledge in my records. And then Jor-El just like pieces out, right? But then what happens next here is that the simulation for Lara, she pops up. And what she says first here is, when we sent Kal-El away, I hope that he would find happiness, safety. I hoped that he would find you. To which that kind of leaves Lois a little speechless because she's like, I don't really know what to say. We haven't really talked before. But then Lara's simulation mentions, and yet your questions triggered my program, my own memories tucked away within the fortress. My role on Krypton was a historian. I worked on crafting the archives that were included in my son's shuttle. And while there are no records of a Darkseid, all the worlds Krypton encountered had a legend about a destroyer, the end of all things, a dark Omega presence that wanted to control all. The final god. Our scientists hope to create a champion to stop him, to change the future. But for there to be an Omega, there must also be an Alpha. And I believe that Doomsday was created to be that. His powers of recreation and rebirth are in direct opposition to everything the King Omega is. And remember now, Doomsday himself has some sort of an inkling to this, right? Because that is the reason why he had originally showed up as Time Trapper before to Superman and said, Superman, you gotta kill me so that I can become, basically go into my ultimate form. And he warned Superman, he told him that, like, if you don't do this, then everyone that you love will die. Things will get worse. And what we're seeing right now is the worst happening here with Darkseid. So the very thing that Superman was trying to avoid is the very thing that he should have done in the first place. And I'm wondering how that's going to play out here, if he's going to have to ultimately do it anyways. But then jumping back to this conversation here between Lois and Lara, Lois mentions, she's like, Doomsday is the Alpha. Clark needs to know, but he needs to talk to you, because she knows that, like, that's the only way that he's going to actually, like, kill Doomsday if that's what he needs to do, right? So she's asking the question, she's like, how the hell am I going to get you to him? But of course, here in typical fashion, because this is usually what happens in stories, right? Like expected, that is when someone comes in and crashes her party. Now, initially, she's like, Clark? And when she goes over to see who it is, Superboy Prime is like, it's me, Mario. No, I'm kidding. But he's like, nope, wrong Clark. Now, Superman had already filled in Lois here or what had been happening here, or his adventure with Superboy Prime. So she thought that he was stuck in the future. So Superboy Prime lets her know, he's like, I managed to hold off Darkseid's army, the Darkseid Legion here, but there were ultimately too many of them. But he does have some information. He's like, I know what happened to the rest of the Legions, all the Legions, and I gotta tell Superman now. To which Lois is like, oh shoot, like, you don't know? She's like, I gotta also talk to him too, but he's gone right now. But then once again, before that conversation could continue on, there's this big explosion that comes through. And when we look and we see who it is here, it is Sunboy, part of the Darkseid Legion. And he mentions, he's like, nice try, Superboy, but we know Superman and the Justice League are trying to capture the Heart of Apocalypse. Darkseid is coming. We've already won. It left you to die. But then Prime is like, I'll stop you, son boy. To which son boy is like, how? You're alone. No one can save you. To which Prime is like, there was something that you forgot about. To which son boy is like, and what's that? And then Prime's like, the last page reveal. This man and his fourth wall breaking. And it's in that moment here where we see Lois. And she's like, what the hell? And then Prime says, you blasted her with your sun powers, you dork. Superwoman is back. Now, real quick, just to explain this here. So Sunboy, his ability here is that he generates yellow sun radiation, which can fuel Kryptonian powers. So in this particular situation, when he blasted Lois, then she was able to get her Superwoman powers back. Very simple, right? But I hope that helps just in case you weren't aware of the situation or what happened. So in this next moment now, naturally, what does Superwoman do? She kicks the crap out of Sunboy. And Prime is all too happy and cheering her on too at the same time. But then in the aftermath of that, Lois is asking this question. She's like, my powers, I got them back, but also for how long? Which is when Prime is like, probably not long enough, Lois. After all, we're in the middle of an event. Oh man, Prime is too funny, dude. And he continues on, he's like, which means the rules on time and continuity are a bit tricky. Because we all know what's going to happen, right? At some point in time, when it really matters, Lois is going to lose her powers again. And we'll have this moment of, oh no, what will they do now? But Prime is like, listen, we got to go and we got to go now. But Lois, she doesn't want to leave yet because, you know, she was just talking to Laura. She was just about to find out. She just found out some really crucial information, right? And all the information that's there, all the archives, she's trying to preserve it so that, of course, Clark will be able to see it and hear it later. But in her saying that, she mentions the tournament. So when Superboy is like, hold on for a second, like what tournament are you talking about? But what that leads us into here is this conversation between Lex Luthor and Superman. And ultimately what we're gonna find out here is how exactly these supervillains escaped the Phantom Zone that they were supposed to go into, or that Mr. Terrific had put them in, at least he thought. So the conversation here starts off with Lex saying, after everything that we went through together, you didn't think to come to me. I know that we've had our disagreements, our feuds, but this is the end of the world that we're talking about. Darkseid seeks to bring the end of everything, and yet you still couldn't trust me, Superman? He didn't say that last part, I just added that in there. But he's like, you tried to lock us up, hide us away, like we were only part of the problem and never the solution. You and the Justice League took away our choice. Imagine what this could have been if you came to us and asked us to help. So instead of being on the same team, we must compete with each other. You have your people and I have mine. But he does also mention this. He's like, I'm surprised that you decided to go through with it, to be honest, that you, of all people, would allow the creation of a death tournament. But then he says to Soups, he's like, but with all that being said, I am happy to see you. But Superman got one question. He's like, why, Luthor? To which Lex is like, because I want you to witness my victory. But then Clark asks this question again. He's like, Terrific sent you to the Phantom Zone. We had a plan. How did you do it? How exactly did you escape? To which Lex is like, you're smart enough to know the saying about gods and plans, right? So what this does here is that this brings us back to about a week ago, right when they were making the plans prior to the start here of the DC tournament. And what we find out here is that while they were making these plans, Grodd was telepathically here communicating with Lex Luthor, because we see Grodd where he mentions, he's like, you hearing this? And on the other side, we see Lex where he's like, yep, I heard every single word. And thankfully, you've maintained our mental connection over the years. Now, Lex, he suspected like something like this was on its way, but the question that he asks is why, to which Grodd is like, bro, that doesn't really matter. The heroes are building a plan whether your old buddy in blue likes it or not. The Justice League are going to work together to throw everyone that they don't like into the Phantom Zone. They say it's to protect us, but it's really because they don't want us to enter this tournament of theirs. To which Lex is like, all right, well, I guess we better plan ahead. So what we see happen next here is where Mr. Terrific was, you know, transporting all these villains, at least he thought, to the Phantom Zone. But that's not where they end up getting transported to. Instead, they end up teleporting here to their old lair. the Legion of Doom Lair, or hideout, whichever one you want to call it. And Lex mentions here how it was an old trick that they used back in their Injustice days. As far as the Justice League knows, they are in the Phantom Zone. And due to them having, or due to Lex having advanced warning, he was able to redirect some of Terrific's T-spheres to here instead. But ultimately, it's only going to buy them some time, but it's just enough. To which King Shark's like, to do what? And that's when he tells them what's going on. He's like, the Justice League is trying to capture a weapon called the Heart of Apocalypse. To do so, they need to enter a tournament and prove to themselves that they can be ruthless, to not hold back, to show no mercy. In short, they need to show that they can be us. The man's got a point. And if that is the only way that they can save the world, ultimately they're going to fail. And at some point, they are going to hesitate. They will show mercy, and how the winner has the opportunity to defeat Darkseid and to fix the world. And who better to fix the world? And if you think he was gonna say, it's us, nah, that's not what he said. He was like, then me. Oh my gosh, man, Lex is just too much, dude. So Cheetah, she gets all riled up. She's like, it's always about you, isn't it, Lex? To which Lex is like, you really think that you'll win, Cheetah? But when she goes on to lash, that's not the right word, but either way, you get the point. She goes to attack Lex here. There's a voice that comes in and starts laughing. And when we turn around to see who it is none other than the Joker. And he's like, Lex. You and me back at it again, just like old times. Shall we stab each other in the back now? I'm telling you, this comic issue is funny. And then he's like, or should we wait until the end of the tournament? But then Lex is like, listen, man, stop all that noise. He's like, enough with this. This group will infiltrate the tournament and win. Simple strategy, Joker. Not everything need be chaos. So when Starro asks a question like, wait, so like, how are we even getting to this tournament and where exactly is it? To which Lex is like, it's in the center of the earth. The League is taking a nexus to Skartaris. Man, I probably just butchered that name. My bad, y'all. Y'all gotta forgive me. My Jamaican accent, sometimes it kicks in. But either way, he mentions that as a gateway. So naturally, they're like, okay, like, you're crazy, my guy. Like, how exactly are we gonna be able to get through that without, of course, anyone seeing them? To which Lex is like, well, we'll have to be smarter. And that is when we see here Lex and the whole crew of villains right now with him, that they got some war suits on. And I'm like, listen, man, maybe I want to be a villain just so I can get one of them suits. And he tells everybody, he's like, prepare to enter the Nexus. And as we see them traveling through, we hear once again Lex, or we see Lex talking to Superman. He's like, you want to know why I will win this, Superman? It has nothing to do with how strategic I can be. And it's not just because I can go to the depths of my soul far past anything that you're capable of. It's about sacrifice. I have no problem with my allies falling on the field of battle. They can all die as far as I care. And the thing that is going to really get under your skin is some of your friends are going to start to see it my way. So Superman's like, all right, man, that's enough. I've had enough of that crap. I don't care what happens next. You are not winning. To which Lex is like, you can't see your biggest weakness, Clark. You care. Which goes back again to that same conversation, that same theme that they keep on showing us here with Superman. And Lex continues, he's like, not just about the people here. You're distracted by what is happening outside as well. But what we see here next is this thing that kind of gives us an opening or a preview to some of the matchups that are going to happen here. As the words say, here you must do battle. Best 2 out of 3. The winner is one step closer to the power to defeat Darkseid. As we see here a preview of what is supposed to be Superman versus Captain Atom. And then we also see a preview here of Lex Luthor versus the Demon, with the words here under that are carved in what looks like fire that say 8. But then we pick back up here on Prime and Lois as Prime is asking the question, a death tournament? And he's like, man, I can't believe that there's a death tournament and I'm missing it. He's like, yo, I should totally be in it. I'd kill everybody, punching heads off left and right. To which Lois is like, I thought you were done killing people, my boy. To which he's like, all right, hold on for a second here. I'm just saying that I could do it, not that I will do it. But then this man, he says this. He's like, you have any idea how OP I am? I'm a power scaler's dream, and I love a good tournament arc. And I gotta say, I love Superboy Prime's arc in this entire story. This is great. But Lois, she's focusing here on the task at hand. She's like, we need to figure out how to get the lost archives here to Clark. He needs to know the truth about Doomsday's creation. But then it's in that moment here where Superboy Prime, he gets this idea. He's like, I totally realize where we are, and I think I got an idea. So with that, he flies off. And as soon as that happens, there's a voice that comes in right behind Lois. And it's the voice of Sunboy, because now he just woke up after getting his ass knocked out. But then in addition to him now, we also see two other members here of Darkseid's Legion. And Sunboy's like, how about you join us, Superwoman? Your best chance of survival is to pledge yourself to Darkseid. You can prove your loyalty by killing the multiverse brat. Because they know truly that Superwoman is their only chance of actually being able to beat Superboy Prime. Now, naturally, of course, Lois is like, yeah, I'm not finna do that. Then, of course, naturally, they're like, oh no, you will die as well. So Lois is like, Prime, where the heck are you? To which Prime is like, hold on for a second. And homeboy better hurry, because Sunboy, he goes over here to Lara and he's like, these Kryptonian archives are a threat to the final god. They must burn. Lois is like, no, you can't do that. And then right in the nick of time, we see Superboy Prime. And then we also see Clark with him. And what that does here is that evens the odds. It also motivates Lois because she's like, you brought my husband back to me. But she does have a question. She's like, how exactly did you find him? To which Prime is like, I'll explain it after we're done dealing with this group. So Clark, he goes on slashing, he goes on beaming. Lois is using her freeze breath. Yes, I'm calling all these things wrong, but you know what I'm talking about. But then after the battle is done, Superboy Prime is like, yo, quick. We gotta move. These Legion, they're like damn cockroaches. You stomp one out and like a dozen take their place. And if we're getting these archives, we need to get them now. But then once again, Lois got questions. She's like, what exactly is going on here, Prime? And she's asking Clark, she's like, what happened in the tournament? Where is everyone else? Bruce, Diana, Kara, like, where's everybody? And then when she goes to place her hand on her shoulder, when he turns around, you can see that shocked look on her face. She's like, oh my God. Because what we see here is a cyborg-faced Superman. So Lois, she gets ready to clock back. I said clock back, I meant cock back. But Prime stops her and he's like, chill out for a second. He's not cyborg Superman. He's one of the robots that Clark made a long time ago. And if we want to get the truth about Doomsday and Darkseid to the real Superman, we need to get him to Time Trapper, who, as we see right now, is getting yoked up here by Booster Gold. Because if you remember now, what we found out here in DCKO issue #1 is that Darkseid, he has taken control here of Booster Gold. So that's not really Booster Gold anymore. So this first kicks off here with a little bit of a roundup of Captain Atom's history. And it starts off by saying, I was born Nathaniel Christopher Atom in small town America. Growing up where I didn't have a lot of options or control over my future. So I signed up and took to the skies. When the time came for me to make a sacrifice for my country, I did it. I took control of my future. I was reborn with powers beyond anything that I could imagine, and I became more. An agent of good, a superhero, a weapon. But there is one role I've always denied the title of, and that is a god. But you can call me Captain Atom. And what that does next here is that it pulls us here to where we see Captain Atom being yelled at here by Superman. And according here to Captain Atom, he's angry more than he's ever seen him before. Now, the reason why he's upset that Captain Atom took out his cousin here from the tournament, Kara. And to Captain Atom, he's just like Superman. He doesn't get it. I had to make it to the next round. He doesn't want to admit that we are at war. And when we're at war, we gotta make sacrifices. Which is when he says to Superman, he's like, are you done? Can I speak now? And I gotta say, man, him saying, are you done, just kind of reminds me of sometimes when my wife is going off and I'm just like, okay, are you done now? Can I talk? But either way, I digress, because what Captain Atom says here, he's like, here is what I saw. You were down for the count, big guy, and Lex and Joker and their buddies were winning, and you were too worried about everyone else to do what was needed. What did Batman tell you? Get your head in the game, right? You can be mad at me all you want, but my guess is things are only going to get harder from here. So Superman's still in dad mode here. He's like, you and I are gonna have a long talk about this, mister, when this is all over. And then Captain Atom, this dude does the mocking salute and is like, yes, sir. But then here comes this message from the Heart of Apocalypse here that says, prepare for the next round of champions. And what that does here is that transports them or teleports them, to which Captain Atom realizes, he's like, yo, hold on for a second, I'm back in limbo. And while he's being teleported, Captain Atom is telling himself, he's like, Time Trapper said that we needed to show no mercy to become the King Omega. We had to be like Darkseid. So I did that. I have the power and the experience. I'm going to win no matter who I gotta fight. I'm like, you may have wanted to choose your words wisely there, my guy. Because when he gets teleported, he's like, oh, shoot, as he sees Superman right before him. And the words here for the Heart of Apocalypse say, Captain Atom, Superman, to advance here to the next level, you must engage in a contest of hand-to-hand combat. Best 2 out of 3 wins. When one combatant loses, that combatant must choose a form to ensure victory. The only way forward is to fight. So what Captain Atom realizes here is that where they've been teleported to is the real Metropolis. To which, of course, Captain Atom is like, bro, like they gave you the home court advantage. And what Superman realizes here, he's like, yeah, it does sound like Metropolis. I can hear the people, but it's missing something. To which Captain Atom responds back and is like, it's messing with us, trying to make us worried about really throwing down with each other if there are civilians present. So of course, Supes dives on in, puts his hand on his shoulder, and is like, it chose the 2 of us for a reason, Nathaniel. We need to be careful. But Captain Atom, this man is playing to win, and Supes doesn't understand this yet, right? And that's when Atom, he clocks back and he's like, there you go again, Superman, not getting it. I'm playing to win. And he just knocked Supes through multiple buildings. And he says to himself, he's like, I hope Superman sees that this hurts me as much as it hurts him. So when Superman here regains his footing, or is trying to regain his footing here, he's like, Captain Atom, what are you doing? The heart manufactures realities. These buildings, they could be full of real people. But Captain Atom, he don't much care. He's like, that's debatable, as he charges on in at Supes. So as Captain Atom, he gets there, what Supes does is that he grabs his fist, stops homeboy right in his tracks. And when Atom tries to go in with the other hand, Supes just throws him all the way down to the ground, to which Captain Atom is like, okay, now you're getting it. You and I fought before, Superman, but this time we really need to go for it. You heard the Time Trapper. No mercy, as he sends this blast here right at Superman. But then quickly here, Atom charges at him, gives him a 1-2, but then Superman is like, no, and then knocks him back. And as Superman does that, he's like, no, I will find another way. To which Atom is like, well, I guess it's the best thing that I win then, big guy. So then what Captain Atom does here next, knowing of course that one of Superman's weaknesses here is kryptonite, he turns his fists. One of them he turns into red sun energy and knocks Superman with it, pow. While the other hand, he comes in and hits him again, pow, with kryptonite this time. Call that the 1-2. And as Superman here takes those hits, he's like, you know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe I can't be that ruthless. But I know you too, Nathan. You would never kill in cold blood. But Atom, he's a different type of dude right now. He's like, you don't know me or what I've been through. Think about every time my suit has been destroyed and I exploded. All those times I was launched across time and space, lost. And you never, ever looked for me. And it's in this moment here where Captain Atom begins to drain the power here from Superman. All of it. As he mentions, until your atoms are turned into nothingness. But then he says this to Superman. He's like, or you could say that I'm helping you. You didn't want to conduct this tournament in the first place. So I'm helping you to leave it for good. And in this next moment here, what we see is basically Superman just disintegrate into nothingness. And right after that happens here, Captain Atom, he's like, hold on, the Omega energy. Can you feel that? The heart, the fires are burning. We're getting closer to the center and its power. It's unlike anything that I've ever felt. With this, we can stop Darkseid and save the world. And just like that, Captain Atom has won the first out of the best 2 out of 3 matches. So then, just like the video game, we see where Superman comes back in regenerated. And here he says to Captain Atom, he's like, after what you did to Supergirl, I wonder if that's the power talking, or are you really out for yourself? To which Captain Atom responds back and he's like, I'm not sorry for taking out your cousin or for kicking your ass, Boy Scout. This is the whole damn point. We're at war and I'm doing what you won't. So it's here where the heart comes in and says, okay, round 2 begins. Choose your form, choose the arena. And here, as we look in the background, we see different versions here of Captain Atom. He says, choices, but I know exactly what to do. The best strategy here is to bring my biggest weapon. And here as well, we also see Superman behind him, different versions of Superman, as he's like, my past and future, all powerful, but all could be drained. I know what form you're going to choose, and I'll only have seconds to pull this off. And it's here where it says, you have chosen. And what we see next is really cool, because we see here where Captain Atom, he chooses the Monarch version of himself. And then we see here where Superman chooses Superman Prime 1 million. Love to see it. And what the heart does next here is that it teleports them to Captain Atom's hometown. And for Captain Atom, he's like, if you're trying to get me in the fields, that's really not going to work here, because all you're doing is reminding me of what I'm fighting for. To which Superman's like, okay, see, we're on the same page here, Cap. We want to save the people that we love, the world that we love. To which Captain Atom's like, okay, bro, then let's fight for it. But it's in this moment here where what Superman does is that he takes off into the sky. And what Captain Atom realizes here is that Superman, he's heading to the sun. He realizes that he's trying to absorb more solar radiation. But Captain Atom is like, I'll just drain that too. But then Superman's like, no, that's not what I'm doing. I'm doing a trick that the Flash told me about once, but I needed this form to gather strong enough strength to do it. So when Supes gets up there, he begins to blow or puff, whatever, you get the point. And as he continues on with that cold, icy breath, what we begin to see here are these icicles. And what Captain Atom realizes here, he's like, hold on for a second, I can't move. What exactly did you do? To which Superman explains, he's like, I used every bit of power that I had. Atoms and quantum fields can be slowed down when exposed to extreme cold, including us. But I have just enough power left after a lifetime in the sun to outlast you. And just like that, we are now tied. Each combatant here has won at least one match. So now they both have to choose a different form. And here, Superman already looks so remorseful as he says to Captain Atom, he's like, I'm sorry for what happens next year. But Atom, he's like, you know what? I know what I did wrong the last time. And as he looks, Superman says to him, he's like, be careful. No matter what we do here, we need to be ourselves. We can't lose who we are in this twisted game. Just now, I felt that same Omega power that you felt. It was intoxicating. But can't you see the closer that we get to the heart, the more it manipulates us? To which Captain Atom is like, sorry, but I know what needs to be done. Instead of choosing one form, I will choose all of them. I am all power. But what surprises Captain Atom here is that in this next moment, Superman doesn't choose anyone else. All he does is that he chooses to be himself, because as he says, I refuse to lose myself in this place. To which Captain Atom is like, you fool, I can control time, space, and all reality with all my cells combined. I am the heart's equal, and as the heart tries to create a new arena, I will use it as an opening to steal back control. We don't need to fight each other now, which, of course, as one would probably suspect, this was not a great decision here by Captain Atom. Because immediately here, what Superman says in observation, he's like, oh no, the fire pits went down at him. The heart sees the cheat. But then before he could even finish that sentence, Captain Atom, he's like, I'm not cheating. I'm just taking this fight directly to the game master. To which Superman warns him or reminds him, he's like, Time Trapper warned us, the heart would defend itself. So as Captain Atom continues to reach out here for the heart, he's like, I'll grab reality itself. I can feel it now. It's beating in my own hands. I only need to, but it's in that moment here where something happens as the heart goes thump, thump. And what begins to happen here is that because Captain Atom challenged the heart is now using Captain Atom's powers against him and pushing him backward here into his own timeline. And as Captain Atom here is being forced through his own history, he's still stubborn as heck. He's like, it doesn't matter. I'll play the game its way then. I will win no matter what. To which Soups is like, bro, like what has gotten into you? And here Captain Atom says, he's like, when we entered the tournament, the heart showed me the world I could create. With its power, I created a world where a soldier like me isn't needed. But it was so much more than that. For the first time in my whole life, I felt like I had control over my own future, like my destiny was now mine to decide. But to you, Superman, I bet it showed you the world exactly as it was. You put everything right back the same way. You wouldn't change a thing. But here Superman responds, it's like, it showed me what I wanted in my heart. And I'm no better than you, but it is not my right to tell anyone what the world should be like. To which, of course, Captain Atom is like, then dude, like, what are you doing here? To which Soups responds back and is like, I trust my friends. I believe in my friends. But here, Atom is like, whatever. If the heart wants to turn my history into a weapon, then what I'll do is that I will then use it. And it's here where Superman's like, stop. Don't you know what that could do to your own history? And it's here where something stops Superman dead in his tracks as he sees, I believe here, Captain Atom as a baby and is like, wait, he's like, what are you? And that is when Atom says, history means nothing to me. What's the point of having it if I'm not willing to sacrifice it to save everyone? So basically he's throwing away his own history in this moment. And he's like, this has to be done. And I'm the one to do it. And it's here where Superman's like, yo, that's the heart talking, Nathan. To which Captain Atom is like, so what? And then he says this, he's like, eat an origin bomb as he throws it here at Soups. And for a second here, you see this boom and this explosion here going off around Superman. And it looks like, oh my gosh, did he lose this match? Especially as it continues on where Captain Atom is like, everything is gone. My past, my life all broken, but it was worth it to finally have control over my own future. That was two, he says. The fight is over. I won. You hear that? I won. The world will be mine. But then here comes that voice that says, not quite. And what we see here next is a Captain Atom looking Superman. He was like, you made a mistake, Captain, but you're too corrupted by the heart to see it. Your little stunt somehow combined our powers. And now I'll use them against you. Drain your energy the same way that you drain mine. And as Captain Atom threatens to rewind back to the start here of this entire round, Soups is like, dude, I can't let you do that. And it's here where Captain Atom's confidence here turns into pleading with Superman, as he's like, don't you know what will happen? If I explode, I'll teleport out of the competition. No idea where and when I could land. It could be anywhere. I won't be in control. And remorsefully here, Superman says, I know. I'm sorry, Captain Atom. And as Superman does what he feels needs to be done, in the aftermath here, Soup says, but at what cost? And in this moment here of reflection, as Superman has won this round, he's like, Captain Atom was right. I can feel the power from the heart growing, reaching for me. It corrupted Captain Atom, but if it could do that to someone like him, and he doesn't get to finish that statement. But of course, we know at this point what he's thinking. As the words from the heart says, prepare for the next round. But then what happens here is that we shift gears over to the Watchtower, which picks up here on what we had seen at the end of DCKO issue number 2. So we see here where Grodd is asking the question, what's happening, World Forger? To which the World Forger responds back and is like, time is beginning to speed up again. But remember now, what we had seen here at the end of DCKO issue number 2 is that Darkseid had revealed, of course, that at least he had revealed himself here to Time Trapper, that this wasn't Booster Gold the whole time, that it was really Darkseid. And as he's clutching here Doomsday, Time Trapper, he says, because I've allowed this charade to go on long enough, the pits are burning with Omega energy. And he says here, with those Omega eyes, he's like, that belongs to me. Now, Time Trapper is kind of like in disbelief. He's like, no, like I know what you are. How did we miss this? To which Darkseid replies back and is like, your hope blinded you, Time Trapper. And it's here where we see Darkseid throw Doomsday here through the time stream, and it's like, time to go to your true reality. I added that little part in there. But he specifically says, to your true reality. And in the aftermath of that, he says, I always hated you, Doomsday. It bothered me that anyone thought a monster like you could challenge a god like me. But you were right in what you told the Justice League. There were no paths to a future that was not mine. None. They really should have listened and prepared themselves for the order I bring. You cannot fight Darkseid and win.
Now look, this starts with Aquaman with a dialogue that says, someday, when these stories are told to those that survive, they will talk about the wonders of the heroes that strode upon the battlefield. And to be sure that the tales will be tall, the events almost unbelievable. But of all the battles, there was only one that wasn't a battle of just mere mortals and heroes. No, there is one battle that was something more, of men and the gods they became. Now we get a lot of Hawkman dialogue during this, and he says, Aquaman, Arthur, my ally, my friend. He has always been a good man, a good king, a good husband, a hero on both land and sea. And he says out loud, I have been a warrior throughout many generations, Arthur. You can't win this. And Aquaman's like, things have changed, Carter. And Hawkman swoops in and he goes, they haven't changed enough. And the dialogue continues. He recently lost his beloved Mera. Is that the darkness I sense in him, like a roaring sea in a storm? Though it doesn't matter. What hope does one who swims have against those that fly? And as he swings that trident, he says, clever, a new weapon, but no weapon can stop experience. And I've had lifetimes of it in matters of war. And he slaps this dude Aquaman so hard with his mace, I'm surprised we didn't get a flashback. Then, Hawkman makes the worst mistake he probably could have made. He taunts Aquaman and says, I'm sorry, friend. It would have been easier if there was water around, I'm sure. And Aquaman says, there's always water around. And as he starts conjuring up, all of a sudden there's water everywhere. And Aquaman says, do you understand what made the canyons you fly through? The continent you walk upon. And Hawkman's like, impossible. But Aquaman continues. He's like, humanity lives only because the water recedes. Fly, Carter. Fly as fast as you can. And man, this is starting to look like a weird version of the destruction of Namek. But anyway, Aquaman shoots up into the sky. And Hawkman's narration continues and says, something is wrong. He's never had that level of power to control as much as he does. And all of a sudden, Aquaman's above him. And it continues more. The water, enough to fill the air, to shrink the distance between us. How can this be? And you can tell, he's completely surrounded. Next thing you know, he's engulfed by the water. Everywhere, water. I stretch, trying to move up, but which way is up? And now, I know. This is not the friend I knew. This is something else. Something premortal. Something chaotic. Can't breathe. Can't share. And like that, the first round goes to Aquaman. And the dialogue continues now from Aquaman, who says, Hawkman disappears as the heart of apocalypse surges, filling the king of the seven seas with more power. Now as round two is starting, Hawkman's reflecting, and the dialogue continues. Now that I failed, none of these feel right. How can I stand up to something so elemental? Arthur has become something else, something akin to and a voice says, God? And it's none other than Horus himself, who says, long ago, I rested on Thanagar. From there, I called to your ancestors to make that world their own. Through blood and toil, you did. I told your wife, Shayera, I would find another place, another home. And for those that still believed, I would call them to a new world. And I just want to say real quick, I think it's really cool to finally see him back in because we covered this issue of Green Lantern Corps where this all happened so long ago, and we haven't seen nothing from Horus since. But anyway, he continues. Tell me, Qatar Hall, do you still believe? And Hawkman says yes. And as he reaches out to Hawkman, he says, then rise. You shall be my guardian. Like Kalmarin of the past, you shall lead the way. And in return, I will grant you my power. And as all this power is surging, Aquaman's dialogue says, something is wrong. This chaotic energy that has permitted this reality has permitted everything, including the blue. I do not control it as much as it is starting to control me. The water is being blown away. But how? The force that would take would be incredible. And out of nowhere, here comes Super Saiyan 1 Hawkman. Nah, but the glow up is crazy. And Aquaman's like, I can feel the energy coming from him. Hawkman, Carter, my friend. The impact knocks me into the air with as much force as my fight with Dagon. Whatever has possessed him, he holds incredible power. He thinks he has an advantage, keeping me in the sky. He's so wrong. And Hawkman says, I'm sorry, Arthur. I have been given the power to finish this, to save this planet, to bring my people to their new world. Don't struggle, Aquaman. Up here, there is no water. And I'm sure you can tell by Aquaman's face, he's not worried at all. Hawkman's like, what? What are you doing? And all of a sudden, Aquaman says, I told you, old friend, there's always water. And as the blood is seeping out of Hawkman, he says, I can't move. And as Aquaman goes rushing back down to the surface, he says, he still doesn't understand. I don't know if anyone does. It doesn't matter how much power you have. I have the power of the blue, the connection to all water in the galaxy, the same water that makes up 60% of Carter's body. Carter may have the power of some god, but unless his heart doesn't pump blood, then I can make him still and stagnant as a pond. I am the dark tide. And with him crashing back into the ocean, Aquaman wins round 2. Now look, I know I'm also supposed to let you guys know about what's going on with DCKO round 3, which is Lobo and Wonder Woman. But I have to admit, I'm not a fan of this comic at all. So currently, I know you guys can see that there's some photos showing, and I'll let you know this. Lobo took round 1, but Wonder Woman took round 2 and 3, making her the winner of this fight. Now look, if you remember though, in DCKO issue number 2, Darkseid made his move using the body of Booster Gold. And then he threw a weakened time trapper out of the watchtower into space, which is exactly where World Forger takes over. Darkseid's like, it's time to lay down your arms and face the inevitable. And World Forger says, Darkseid, you fear to face me yourself, that you would use Booster Gold as your puppet? And he responds, Darkseid fears nothing. This fool is just a vessel to keep you at bay. And World Forger says, if it is Booster you want, then it is Booster you shall have. And all of a sudden, there's a ton of Booster Golds everywhere that are like, wow, we really let ourselves go. But he looks thin. I wonder if he's on keto. Come on, boys. This guy needs a makeover, a permanent one. And as they all attack, it reminds me of when all the Invincibles were attacking Invincible, which was a crazy episode, by the way. But anyway, he's like, you're nothing to me, nothing to Darkseid. World Forger says, sometimes you have to fight fire with fire, or in this case, gold with gold. You are weak in this form, God of Evil. You picked an infallible host. If Booster Gold has to die so Darkseid dies, that's a price I think anyone is willing to pay. And Darkseid says, oh yeah? And he sends all the Booster Golds flying. He says, I wouldn't be so sure. World Forger responds, nice effort, but you're clearly spent. You're only delaying the inevitable. And all of a sudden we see them eyes we know all too well. as he says, "The only thing that's inevitable is when someone underestimates me and those Omega beams hit their mark. And as he hits that stance he hits so well, he continues, they find out how wrong they are. As annoying as you've been, World Forger, at least you've served your purpose. That was inevitable." Now look, round 4 starts off, and Cyborg and Swamp Thing are already going at it. Cyborg's having some inner thoughts, and he's like, sometimes you have to fight your friends. Maybe they're mind-controlled, manipulated somehow in some evildoer's villainous scheme. Maybe it's simply a stupid misunderstanding. My point is, sometimes superheroes fight superheroes. It happens. And Swamp Thing's like, for my part, Cyborg, I am sorry that it has to end this way. And Cyborg's like, I'm not hearing that. He pulls out 3 cannons and 2 flamethrowers. My man's not playing. But he continues, and he says, so when Swamp Thing came at me with vines, thorns, and fist, I countered with fire, sonic cannons, and a blast of ultraviolet sea light powerful enough to kill every bit of plant life from Seattle to San Diego. Like, bro, did you really just try to take out the whole western seaboard? He's crazy. But round 1 easily goes to Cyborg. And he continues, it was an ugly end, especially for one of our own. But if Darkseid isn't stopped, ugly doesn't begin to describe what he has planned. For my friends, for the Titans, heck, for all mankind. I had to win. And now, I have to do the whole damn thing over again. Best 2 out of 3. That's the rules. Whoever comes out on top will be imbued with Omega energy. They say with that much power, the winner will be able to stop Darkseid's return. And I think it's crazy we get to see all these different forms of Cyborg, even the old Teen Titans from the cartoon, which is fire. But he says, the form I choose should give me the upper hand in the next fight. I figured, if it ain't broke, I don't need to fix it. And we start round 2, and he says, my opponent though, clearly had other ideas. And Swamp Thing looks crazy right now. He says out loud, hey, no hard feelings about that beatdown I gave you last round. We both are doing what we have to do, right, Levi? Or are you Alec Holland? Which Swamp Thing am I dealing with? And Swamp Thing says, I am Swamp Thing. That is all you need to know. As for the beatdown, it was necessary. Observing how you fight, gauging your abilities, is how I ensure my victory. And he goes on the attack. Cyborg is like, nice try. You really think a cybernetic machine man equipped with a freaking mother box is going to be bothered by a few toxic plant farts? And he blasts him. But Swamp Thing is unaffected. He pulls himself back together and he says, yes, but for all the mechanical enhancements, you are still but a man, arrogant like all humans. And then he swallows Cyborg. And Cyborg's still having these inner thoughts, and he says, he was using his head this time around. Literally, in this case. But he was getting into my head as well. And inside of this stomach, I guess you would call it now, Swamp Thing says, nature is patient. You are but a mote on the earth, existing for but a flicker in time. Machines break, humans die, your teammates, all you know, all you've ever done will be forgotten. I am the earth, timeless, enduring. Yet you are the one to stop Darkseid? Can you fight for the planet better than it fights for itself? And Cyborg says to himself, I shouldn't have listened to a word, but it was enough to stop me for a split second. Make me hesitate, make me doubt. Time enough for the digestive acids to wreak havoc on my circuitry. That was the end of round 2, and the end of me as well. And round 2 goes to Swamp Thing. And I think it was cool that they used Cyborg's blood to spell KO. But it's time for the final round now. And Cyborg's taking his protein shake as we can see. And he says, first round I got cocky. Second round I let Swamp Thing psych me out. Knock me off my high horse. I gotta admit, his talk of being alone hit the hardest. The Titans are the only family I have left. And they're scattered across the universe. If they're gone, What am I fighting for? For a moment, the thought makes me hesitate. But Swamp Thing was wrong. I didn't come this far to throw in the towel. Of all the forms I could have chosen, this was the one it had to be. And Swamp Thing says, "You appear to be more cautious this time, Cyborg. Is that form supposed to protect you this time around? I don't need to choose a single form." And he starts to split into multiple forms and says, "Nor do I have to fight one-on-one. I am Legion." And you can see he's chosen tons of forms. And he continues, "While you are but one man." And he slowly starts to close in on Cyborg. And Cyborg says, "That's where you're wrong." And as Cyborg goes on the attack, he has an inner dialogue that says, "And that's when I show Swamp Thing why I chose this cyborg form. This titanic form that shoots starbolts and shadow magic, arrows, and its cryptic sticks, equipped with razor-sharp claws and unbreakable bonds." And Cyborg says, "You think you're timeless, enduring? So is friendship, loyalty, and whether the Titans are dead or alive right now, I fight for them. I carry them with me, fighting the fight they'd want me to. With them, I am never alone, and I'll never give up." And just then, Swamp Thing says, "Good." And Cyborg's like, "What?" Swamp Thing continues, "Promise me, when it's time to fight Darkseid, you do it with every bit of ingenuity, heart, and perseverance that you did here with me. Promise me, and then do it." And Cyborg says, "I promise, and thank you." And just like that, Cyborg blasts him. In round 3 goes the Cyborg, who wins this round. He says, "Doesn't exactly feel like a victory, but I won. So what's next? And what's it gonna take to save the world?" But just like that, the next round has already started. Zatanna's like, "What was that?" And I think we all know that mallet. And she's just crashing through everything. Zatanna says, "Show yourself." And Harley Quinn says, "Ready or not, here I come." And Zatanna comes running up like, "Oh, it's you. Hey Harley, I'm so relieved to see you. Does this mean we're combat partners? That's fortunate. Let's agree to a fair bow." And Zatanna's on the floor gasping for air. And Harley Quinn says, "The hell's fair about putting me up against the world's strongest magic user anyway? Hopefully I fractured your lyrics. Can't backwards spellcast if you can't backwards talk. The winner takes all combat though. I might just got you beat, Z. When's the last time you sparred with anybody anyway?" And she takes off running, which is probably a smart choice. Harley Quinn's like, "No magic, just hand to hand." "All right then, I'll teach you this lesson for free, but the next one's gonna cost you." And Zatanna's running and she's like, "Let me get rid of these loud ass heels." And Harley Quinn's just loving this. She's like, "Come on, Z, you don't gotta be afraid. If I win this thing and become the cosmic god or whatever, I'll bring you back to life." Zatanna's still running and Harley Quinn cuts her off. And she's like, "How's your throat feeling?" Zatanna tries to speak and goes, and Harley Quinn says, "Trick question," and whacks her right in the stomach. She says, "Just wanted to know if you could talk again yet." And while Zatanna's on the ground still catching her breath, Harley Quinn leaps up in the air and jams the stick of that mallet right into Zatanna's chest. And like that, Harley Quinn takes round 1. Now look, as we get to see all these different costumes and variants of Harley Quinn that she can choose from, I just want to say, Zatanna might be lucky Harley didn't choose this one with this crazy looking scythe, because this thing is scary friggin' looking. But anyway, Harley Quinn's like, "I sure hope the men pit fighting in the baddie bracket get to play a fun dress-up game too." Zatanna says, "They do. The form changes are a boon, meant to enhance the stakes of the fight." And Harley Quinn says, "Hey ya, Z, sounding kinda raspy there. Like no beep." But anyway, she goes, "That was a dirty trick, Harley." And she's like, "Well, yeah, that was the whole point." But Zatanna's not taking no BS no more. She's ticked off. And she says, I could kick your ass without magic for the record, without gimmicks. And like that, round 2 starts. Zatanna says, the arena adapts to us as well. We started out in something from my mind, but this. Harley Quinn says, yeah, this is me. I've been playing a lot of retro video games lately. And Zatanna says, no more tricks, Quinn. And she goes in swinging. Harley moves out the way, grabs her earring with her teeth and rips it out. It says, aren't you tired of trying to be the better person? And Zatanna heals herself instantly. And Harley Quinn says, see, there you go. I never had a chance of having a fair fight with someone who can heal herself. Let's see how many bones I have to break before you lose this round. You refuse to use magic to fight me, but I can tell you're still holding back anyway, coward. And Zatanna dives under the mallet, grabs a piece of metal-looking flower, and stabs Harley Quinn right in the leg with it. She goes, well, you know what they say. And she takes the flower right out of her leg and stabs Zatanna with it and says, a thigh for a thigh. But Zatanna's not done. She grabs Harley Quinn right by the hair and starts dragging her, punching her. I mean, it's a straight up cat fight. Harley Quinn kicks her right in the gut, spits out a tooth. She goes, now you're getting it. But Zatanna's had enough. She sprints full force and punches Harley Quinn so hard in the face that she wins the second round. Now, as they're getting ready for round 3, Zatanna says, more tricks? But I don't need a costume change or a power-up to beat Harley. And Harley Quinn's like, we're tied up, Z. So what do you say we make it interesting this last round? I want to level the playing field a little bit. And she's like, what do you have in mind? And she says, I'll borrow some of your magic. And like that, the final round starts. And I love how they point out the fact that Harley Quinn is always breaking the fourth wall. Because she's like, look at this kaleidoscope of light and wonder. How amazing. And Zatanna's like, what? This new stage is a blank void. I'm assuming because we're tied. So the blankness is meant to be an equalizer? And Harley Quinn's like, blankness? It's a dimensional zoetrope, see? See? The big final. And she's like, see what? Harley Quinn's like, you really can't see this? This spinny part right here? Zatanna's like, what spinny part? Harley Quinn talks to us for a second and says, can you guys see this? Psst. And Zatanna's like, who are you talking to? Harley Quinn responds, no one. Don't worry about it. And Zatanna gets pissed. She's like, stop gaslighting me. But Harley Quinn's not hearing that. She slaps Zatanna in the face with cursed chains. And then Zatanna comes back with Astro Fist. And they're going at it because Zatanna just got hit with slaps. I mean, this is a straight up war all over again. But the look on Zatanna's face is something scary. But Harley Quinn picks up on this and does what she does best. She says, John Constantine's ex, Zatara's daughter. Look at you, Z. A whole lifetime of running in the shadows of more powerful men. Aren't you sick of playing magical karaoke of your dead pop's greatest hits? Zatara's like, shut up. What now? Are you going to pull a white rabbit out of a hat? And she says, close. Big magic gun. And as she pulls out this big gun, she says, how's it feel to chase at the heels of a legacy you'll never reach? Anyhow, I wouldn't know. You don't just stand in Zatara's shadow. You set up shop there. You brought real estate there. Dead daddy's girl. You made peace with being haunted by him. Because at least then, it still feels like he's around. Zatara says, shut up, and looks evil as hell, and loses it. And Harley Quinn says, there she is. There's our world's strongest magic user. And just then, you see this weird look come over Harley Quinn's face, and then a tear, as she says, knew you had it in you. And you can see a piece of magic has impaled Harley Quinn. And just like that, Zatanna snaps out of it and goes, no, not like this. Harley, this might be permanent. This is real. And Harley Quinn says, I was never gonna make it past you, Z. It was never a fair fight for me. I knew I'd never win against you. But you got a real chance, Z. A real chance to win this whole thing. You just needed a nudge in a morally grayer direction. I know you well enough to get you there. I wanted to help you find your headspace to continue in the bracket. Use your ruthlessness, Z. Weaponize it. I'm glad it was you. For what it's worth, because if I was gonna die in here, at least I let a friend take me out. All I ask is that you go show these dorks what our world's strongest magic user can do. That's all, folks. And like that, Harley Quinn is gone. And this round goes to Zatanna. Now look, while all this is going on, there are also two separate events that are going on at the same time outside of DCKO. So Justice League Lunar has officially finished getting everyone off of Earth in this evacuation. But all of a sudden, they get another distress call. So Roy Harper and Donna Troy are like, hey, you guys hold down the fort. We'll go check this out and find out who this last person is that's still on Earth and get them to safety. So when they get there, they're like, oh God, it's so much worse than I ever imagined. And Donna's like, I'm afraid it's just the beginning. Now, let's find that distress signal. And someone says, fools, there are no evacuees. The only ones in distress are you heroes. And Donna says, get down. All of a sudden, both of them get beamed. And we see by who. You Titans are no threat to Grail, daughter of Darkseid. My father is coming soon, and I won't allow anything or anyone to get in his way. Now, in the regular Watchtower, things continue from the last issue, where Darkseid's like, you're finished, World Forger. This rift is the last remnant of my defeat, an energy imprint from my death. But by using Booster Gold's temporal energy, I can reverse the interference of the quantum quorum and accelerate the transformation of Earth into a new apocalypse. Just then, someone says, no, Darkseid. And we see who that is. As he says, not while Grodd has the power to stop you. And he starts choking him out. All of a sudden, he's throwing Darkseid all over the Watchtower. And he's like, your scheme fails you, Darkseid. Taking a weak form like Booster Gold. What a joke. Darkseid says, I will not let you get the upper hand, Grodd. And he punches the hell out of him. And you can tell these two powerhouses are neck and neck. And Grodd says, enough. You may be able to match my strength, but you're still vulnerable to my psychic influence. Now release Booster Gold from your control. And Darkseid is having a tough time. And this starts off with some dialogue that says, my name is Jay Garrick. I'm still the Flash, and I'm angry. And his opponent says, my name is Guy Gardner. I'm a Green Lantern. The Green Lantern in my opinion. And I'm pretty pissed off. Jay says, my old lab at the university. This is where it happened. This is where I became what I am. This is the location the Heart of Apocalypse has chosen for our first round. And the Heart of Apocalypse gives them their little, instructions on fighting and their upgrading. And I'm not going to read that mess. We already know the deal. And he tells them to fight. And they take their Mortal Kombat poses. And Jay says, Guy might be tough. And Guy responds, this has-been should be cake. Guy says, well, old-timer, how you feeling about all this? And he responds, frankly, exhausted. And Guy charges in for the attack. Jay says to himself, I've got decades on Guy. Decades of fighting. Decades of loss. I bet that's why the Heart placed us here. At the beginning of it all. Like it never happened. Like it never mattered. It's trying to get under my skin. But here's the benefit of being a Flash. When you could run through 10,000 scenarios in a nanosecond, evil is easy to outwit. And just then, mid-fight, Jay says, Guy, wait. And Guy's like, look, Jay, we haven't got all day here. And Jay responds, the Heart said a game. And Guy's like, yeah, so? And Jay's rummaging through a locker and he says, I know what's at stake, but let's be smart about this. We have to play by the Heart's rules, but we don't have to give it our souls. Here, me and the other research students used to play this when we were in a bind. stuck. And Guy's like, checkers? You gotta be kidding me. There's no way the Heart of Apocalypse will let us do this. And Jay simply says, I don't see it stopping us. Do you? So the funny part about this game is it starts off looking like it's about to be a strategic match. I mean, look at Guy's face. And then you see Jay's face and he says, you can't move there. So Guy moves again. And Jay screams, you can't move there either. For God's sake, Guy, don't you know how to play checkers? And that's all it took for Guy to get aggravated because he swings the checkers all over the place and he's like, so sue me if I don't know how to play your stupid old man game. Jay's like, Gardner, show some respect for someone who's been at it since before you were born. Not every fight has to be to the death. And Gardner responds and says, what world are you living in? Haven't you been paying attention? We don't play mumble-tea peg with gangsters and bank robbers anymore. It's a hard universe out there. Don't you get it? Just do the world a favor and finally retire. You Alan, the entire Jurassic Society. Hell, if Wildcat had known when to call it quits, maybe he'd still be alive. And Jay is pissed. He's like, retire, huh? And my boy thought he was in Mortal Kombat and turned into Kung Lao and threw his hat. Guy's like, he broke my nose. Grandpa broke my effing nose. And Jay starts to get speed and he's like, sorry if checkers is too slow for you. Why don't we speed things up? And Guy responds, nah, how about we just finish it? And I don't know exactly what he did, but he made some sort of blade and he chopped Jay up. And I guess you know who the first round goes to. And as they're preparing for the second round, they have some internal thoughts. Jay says, as angry as I am, I can't give in to this. I need to remember what I'm really made of. And Guy says, I just got stronger. I can feel it. Good. I'm gonna kill this geezer. F green. I'm going red. And as the second round starts, Guy says, oh look, the original JSA headquarters. Maybe we can play some bridge this round. Or how about some shuffleboard? And he hears Jay say, careful Guy, storm's brewing. He responds, where you at, old man? And he hears, I'm all around you, Guy. Just then, Guy's struck by lightning. And he hears, because I am the Speed Force. And he's hit again and again. And Guy's not hearing it. He puts up a force field and says, come on. And he's hit again. And Guy says, Red Rage isn't great at defense, Guy. Through the Speed Force, I can sense Wally's distress somewhere in the past. But I can't go to him now. I can't forfeit this fight. So instead, I strike that red ring with nearly a century of my own pent-up rage. I overload it, and I blow that little crap, for YouTube's sake, to atoms. And second round goes to the Speed Force, or should I say Jay. And before the third round starts, Jay reflects. He says, ears full of emerald ash, Guy's still green in his soul, not red. He's a good man. Just a young soldier doing his duty, like I used to be. I can feel the heart's dark strength surge in me, and it's frightening. I was a good man once, and he seems to be not the only one self-reflecting, as Guy says. What Jay said, respecting what came before, he's right. And it's not red or even green. It's not the Lantern Corps at all. What I truly am is a warrior. No more belly atching. This is what I was built for. And this form looks badass. I also love the fact that DC brought this back because some of you guys might not know, but Guy originally was just a regular human from Earth who became a Green Lantern. But then in the 90s, they retconned that, and Guy had hidden Valdorian genes. That made him human/Valdorian hybrid with shape-shifting, living weapon powers during his warrior era. Then DC later got rid of all that, so I thought it was cool they brought it back again. But anyway, Guy's like, welcome to Valdor, Jay Garrick. You're on my turf now. And Jay's still hyping himself up. He's like, it's time to let that anger go. It's time to start at the beginning with my clearest mind. When my sole goal was to wage war against evil and win. And we see a young Jay, and he says, "Swell planet, guy. Shame you'll have to die on it. But it's for the greater good." And these two get right into it. Guy says, "You don't get it, do you, Garrick? See, I took your advice." And he says, "Glad to hear somebody did." And he throws his bolt weapon, and Guy catches it. And he says, "It's not just me you're against. It's the entire lineage of my Valdorian ancestors. An endless army of warriors dating back eons." And it's so cool you can see the silhouette of all of his ancestors. And he throws the bolt weapon back and he says, "So please." And he pins Jay to a wall and says, "Have some respect for my elders." At this moment, Jay says, "Guy, do me one favor." And Guy responds, "No mercy, Garrick." Jay says, "Don't need it. Just beat the tar out of Darkseid for me, will ya?" And Guy responds, "You got it, pal." And he sends a missile right at Jay and blows him up for the win. Now look, if you guys have been following everything I've been doing, you guys know this Darkseid story is going on right now and it is getting crazy. And it left off on the last issue with Grodd putting Darkseid under mind control. And now we finally get to see the second part of this. And Darkseid says, "No quorum, only chaos. Time Trapper falls. The World Forger falls. Booster Gold falls." And Grodd's like, "You're wrong. I believe Booster remains. I will find him. I will pierce your mind. And I will find him." And as he does his mental attack, he says, "Hear me, Booster Gold. I will free you from..." And he's interrupted. "No, you hear me, Grodd. See my time. See your fate. Accept my end." And it is gruesome. All the heroes and Grodd seem to be decaying. And just then, we see none other than Lex, who says, "Grodd?"
So this picks up here with Lex's narration as he says, "I've had to make difficult choices in my life, ones that have led me to precarious positions, but ones I thought were the best for the world, and I paid for those choices. Until..." And it's here where we see Neron say to him, as we go to a flashback, "Are you ready, Lex, for this all to be over? All you have to do is make a deal with me." Now, Neron here is a powerful demon lord from hell. One of his main things is that he's kind of like Marvel's Mephisto, but only in the way that he likes to make deals with people, of course, in exchange for their soul. So Lex Luthor here, he makes a deal with Neron, where Lex would give up his soul in exchange for having his failing, degenerating body completely restored to a young, healthy, and powerful physical state. Now later on here, he did get his soul back, I believe, after Neron was defeated, but Lex definitely still feels those effects. Because here, as his narration continues, "And ever since that day with Neron in hell, one question has haunted me. Even as I battle a literal demon, I'm unsure whether what I experienced was real or not. I've died, been reborn, been remade, and created again since then. I've been given multiple chances at life, and with each one I have tried to learn from the last. Did I cheat the deal? Did I cheat the system created by the devil himself? Good and bad are meaningless to me. I do what I know is right. That is something Superman could never understand. Recently, I spent time on the side of the angels working with my hated rival, but he chose to end that partnership. What gives him or anyone the right to judge me or my choices? I have contemplated my own role in this universe many times, and even now, when Darkseid returns and we must fight, I still will do what I believe is best. But there are moments when I'm by myself, alone with my thoughts. My genius means I must consider all things. I must question, and I wonder what will happen the next time that I die." And on cue, we see this man Lex get taken out here in the first round of round 7 with him versus the demon, as his body is just getting scorched. Now, speaking of demons here, as we mentioned, Lex is fighting the demon. Now, when you hear the demon in DC, that's Etrigan, and he's a powerful demon here from hell that is magically bound to a man named Jason Blood since the days here of King Arthur. Jason used to be a knight here in Camelot, so this dude is old. So what happens is that Jason says a spell, and then they switch places, and Etrigan comes out breathing hellfire and tossing around magic. He's very brutal and rather chaotic, but because of that bond gear, he often ends up fighting on the side of good. But wait until you see how things unravel here. Because after the demon here scorched up Lex, he's basking in this glory. He's like the games you humans play, all at the direction of that old doomsday. And as Lex's body here is regenerating, he says, "The heart of Apocalypse sent us to my old home in Camelot. It must want you to rot." But Lex, he's just like, dude, like, why are you here, demon? Like, what do you care if Darkseid even arrives? To which the demon is like, "Long ago, I experienced his dishonesty on a cosmic odyssey. I have seen the infinite darkness beyond his facade. He exploited me then, and I wish to chat with the old god. In the name of help, Zatanna let Jason out of his cage. So this is one of the few times Jason Blood and I are on the same page." So it's here, like when normal, when you're starting here the very next battle, you gotta choose your new form. So the demon, he mentions how he doesn't really have many forms here to take on, and how he assumes that Lex is gonna take on something brand new. But Lex mentions here, he's like, "I'm understanding this tournament the hard way. It is not only about who has the most power. There is more strategy involved." So it's here where we see that Lex has now decided to take on the war suit with the Superman sign on it. And Lex makes this observation here. He's like, this form feels as if it were the real thing. Did the heart create it or pull it from the past? While the demon picks a suit here, or as he calls it, armor, that was forged by Merlin himself. And he calls it as much of a punishment as it is protective. But what he's more confused by is like, why would you pick a suit that has the symbol of your greatest enemy? But what the demon doesn't understand is what this suit is powered by. But of course, Lex doesn't tell him that yet, right? He just says, "Shut up, demon. Look around you. The heart is moving us to a new arena." And that new arena was, of course, favoring Lex this time. And it's here where the demon says this. He's like, perhaps I was wrong. The heart did not wish for my victory all along. I believe it is manipulating us to bring defeat." To which Lex is like, "Yeah, of course it is, you dolt." What a jerk. So then what happens next here is that we start to see these Lex bots that start to go and attack the demon. To which the demon is like, he sees this as cheating. But here Lex says to himself, he's like, "This demon is an idiot. I let him win the first round. He doesn't understand how much is at stake for me and the real world." But it's here where we jump back over to the Fortress of Solitude, because after all, now this is the Superman comic that we're reading. And it brings us back to where we see Superboy Prime and then Lois. And what Superboy Prime is doing right now is that he's uploading Lara L's hidden Kryptonian archives here into one of the Superman bots. And what Superboy Prime wants to be able to do here is that he wants to be able to get this information over to the Time Trapper, aka the future version here of Doomsday, so that he can tell him what his true role in this entire fight here against Darkseid is. Now, if you want to understand why he's doing this here, there's a video that came out before this one as a part of the series that I will link down below so that you can kind of catch yourself up. Now, Lois, within reason, doesn't like these bots at all. But what else is bothering her currently is why Superboy Prime is here in the first place. Because Superman had mentioned to her that Superboy Prime was fighting Darkseid's Legion in the future. To which Prime is like, I did, but I found something out about the Legion that Superman needs to know to give him his hope back. So it's here where Sunboy is like, the false Superman lies, because yes, Sunboy did follow Prime from the future. And Sunboy continues on to mention, he's like, he ran, he left the Legion to be erased, escaped just as they were wiped from existence. He saw what you will all see, that the future is Darkseid. To which Prime's like, man, shut the F up, Sunboy. I did not run. I flew away. There's a difference, okay? And he continues on. He's like, I saw the best way to save the Legion, to save the future. As heartbreaking as it is, the only way to save it is to. But it's in that moment where he gets interrupted. Because of course, they would leave us as the readers here with this massive cliffhanger. The jerks. But what happens here is that the upload that Superboy Prime was doing is now complete. But the Superbot mentions that time is of the essence here because the data is so massive that they will only be able to hold it here for 2 hours. So it's here where all three of them take off as they head over here to the Watchtower. But the thing is, they will not be prepared for what's going on there. We'll pick up on that a little bit later, because what we do is that we jump back here to the fight between Lex Luthor and the Demon. So what the Demon does here is that he shares information about what he knows about Omega and Darkseid. He mentions this to Lex. He's like, ever since the days of Mordred and Merlin, there were whispers in the shadows of an Omega, a Dark Lord to rule all Dark Lords with a vendetta, but not with magic's border, with fear and order. I believe those words were of Darkseid. Lex, this is how our stories go with the tide. Even your creation, you have no destiny. None of us do. We only have eternal damnation. But it's here where Lex fires back and it's like, God, I hate rhymes. And as he knocks the Demon here out of the building, and as he's holding on and trying to climb back up, the Demon says to him, he's like, look at you in your armor, so blue. Why do you choose a symbol of a man who hates you? But it's here where Lex says, he's like, you are overthinking this thing, Demon. I didn't choose this armor for some kind of sentimental value. I know what is built into it. And if we're gonna play an Apocalypse game, then I must play with Apocalypse toys. And it's here where he pulls out the mother box and then throws it directly here at the face of the Demon. And that thing takes his head off clean. And just like that, KO! But here, in reflection, as he looks at the headless body here of the Demon, Lex says to himself, since the battle with XL, I have been in exile, questioning who I am, everything I thought I knew. Now, this here is in reference to something that happened back in Superman issue number 25. The battle with XL here is referring to the big fight where Superman, Superwoman, who was Lois at the time, and Lex went up against XL. Now, XL is a superpower clone of Lex that goes rogue and has to be put down here. This fight is actually what ended up having Lois losing her superpowers in the first place until she was able to get them back when she was hit by Sunboy. But as Lex continues to reflect here, he's like, was I doing the right thing? I had to consider something I never wanted to, that I could be wrong. And as the Demon here is regenerating, he's like, that's when it hits me. I know how to win. Right, wrong, good, bad, soul, no soul. And as the Demon regenerates, she's like, you got lucky, Lex. The next round, I won't hold back. No more games. I will choose a form I enjoy as well. Finally, one free of the curse of rhyme. But then Lex says to himself, I know who I am. Now the Demon, he thinks that he has the home court advantage because they are currently in the underworld. But Lex is like, this is hardly my first time. But then the Demon, he catches that sniff. He's like, you reek of fire and brimstone. I love it. But then, of course, the Demon's like, you think being cast into hell means you have a chance against me? To which Lex is like, you misunderstand, Demon. In my travels, I learned about myself, but I also learned about these runes that were once carved into my skin. They were no accident. They were spells of preparation for possession. And it's here where he begins to enchant the spell. As he then says, change the form of man. And then Lex continues by saying, free the prince forever damned, free the might from freshly mire, boil the blood in the heart of fire. Gone, gone the form of man. And what Lex has done here is that he has separated Jason Blood from the Demon, and now the Demon is within and bonded to Lex himself. And as Jason is like, Lex, what have you done? Am I finally free of this curse? Lex is like, man, shut up. And then just slashes this dude's throat. And Lex just stands over him savagely. He's like, you are a fool to complain about the Demon Blood. This is a gift. But in the aftermath of this here, you see Lex screaming in pain as the Demon, Etrigan, says, hope you got a gift receipt. And he continues on by saying, you think Jason was ever in the driver's seat? And as we see the KO, we see here where Lex is fighting back against Etrigan as he says, I refuse to let anyone control me ever. You're right, Demon. There is one more that is more powerful than you could ever comprehend. And that's when Etrigan is like, there is a darkness in you, I find. Wow, Lex, you're really tortured in your mind. But when this wrestling is all done, Lex says to himself, I don't care whether I have a soul or not. I am a pawn in no one's game. I control the game. I win the game. I will be a god. But it's here where his thoughts get interrupted because there's this voice that comes in his head, Luthor. And when we see who it is Grodd. Now, if y'all watched our last video here, what you would have seen, which is where we covered rounds 4 and 5, that was the battle between Swamp Thing and Cyborg, and then also Harley Quinn and Zatanna. What we saw at the very end there was that Grodd was going face to face here with Booster Gold, aka Darkseid. So as we see this bloodied face Grodd, he's telling Lex, he's like, you gotta listen to me. To which Lex is like, dude, stop screaming. So Grodd tells him, he's like, yo, we've been betrayed. To which Lex is like, what are you talking about? Speak quickly. The heart is shifting me to the next round, and I might not be able to hear you. To which, of course, Grodd does not get to the point. This dude does not get to the point. He's like, he tricked the heroes. We were fools, Lex. He played us. And I'm like, bro, just say who played you. Man talking in parables when the dude just told him he don't have time. So naturally, Lex is like, betrayed by who, Grodd? Betrayed by who? But of course, it is another cliffhanger. For Lex, at least, we already know who betrayed. And what happens next here is that we see Booster Gold as he comes in, who we know, of course, is Darkseid, who comes in and says, the world will soon be mine. I will shed this skin and be reborn. But it's here where we see the Time Trapper come back. We thought that he had already blasted Time Trapper out of there. So Time Trapper comes back in and it's like, fight me, Darkseid. But it's here where Booster Gold just catches his hand and it's like, no, Time Trapper, your story is over. And then says that no one is coming to save you. So now the question is, will these three, the Superbot, Lois, and Superboy Prime, will they be able to get to the damn watchtower before it's too late?
Jason Todd's dialogue starts by saying, my name is Jason Todd, and I'll tell you a secret, something I've never told anyone, because now, at the end, why the F not? Here it is. Sometimes, when people look at me, even my friends and family, especially friends and family, I feel like they don't see me. Instead, they see him, those eyes, that grin, the laugh, the damn crowbar. They look at me like I'm his creation, his achievement, the crown on the clown prince of crime. Well, no more. In this arena, that ends. And as the heart of Apocalypse is telling the rules to these two, he says, now fight. Red Hood's like, die, clown. Joker says, you verse, again. And by the way, I don't think I could ever read a Joker panel and not hear a Joker voice in my head. But anyway, Red Hood says, he's fast. Worse, he's unpredictable. But it's the third factor that makes him such a nightmare in hand-to-hand combat. It's funny, I remember the first time I saw Bruce fight him. I idolized Bruce back then, and I could still feel the shock. And just then, Joker stabs him right above the knee, and it continues. The shock of seeing Bruce, Batman, struggle against this bony grinning goon who laughed at him the whole time. But now I get it, the hurricane of chaos. And that third factor, the worst part, the abandon. The way he fights like he doesn't care if he lives or dies. And he's just having fun. I'm fighting for my life here. And he gets cut right in the back of the leg. But Red Hood's not playing around, because somehow he stabs Joker right in the back of the neck. And he continues with the dialogue that says, so maybe I should do the same and have my own fun. And then he kicks the blade right through Joker's mouth. Joker's running off. And the dialogue says, maybe that's how you win, by being his creation, fighting just like him. Like you don't care if you live or die. And as Joker runs off, we learn some crucial information. Red Hood continues, so long as I win. Before we entered the tournament, the Quantum Quorum said we could bring something with us. One item, whatever it would take to win against our friends and become whatever the hell a King Omega is. Now me, I've got my share of items to choose from, but it took me less than a minute to decide. They said all of our enemies would be locked up in the Phantom Zone, far away from the tournament, but my gut knew better, which is why I chose what I chose. Because he's never locked away. Not really. I learned long ago that the Joker is always lurking around the corner, just out of view. For years, Bruce studied the elements that made the Joker into what he is, trying to figure out their secret, the Ace chemical compound, something that would kill the demon in Joker. Turn him human once again, but I only get one shot. I know where we are immediately. The chemical smell gives it away. Ace, where he was born. Red Hood says, "Come out and fight, coward. What's the matter? Afraid to face me?" And Joker's on the fence looking like he's Vega from Street Fighter. And a dialogue says, "I'm just stepping onto the catwalk when I hear it. The faintest laughter, like a hiss." And Red Hood fires. But at the same time, Joker throws a saw blade that Red Hood barely misses as it nips his ear. Joker hits the ground and says, "I've been shot plenty of times, kid, but this one feels kind of funny. What did you..." And he starts to mutate. Red Hood says, "Batman spent years on a cure. Luckily, he never found one. But you don't deserve a cure. There's nothing human about you. Whatever you are, never should have crawled out of that vat down there. So these bullets are my idea of a cure. The compound in that bullet, it was produced from the same chemicals that made you, but amplified 1,000 times over. Death by the very stuff that should have killed you in the first place." Joker says, "Nicely played, but I also brought toys." And he throws a Joker bomb that sends Red Hood right into that vat. Red Hood says, "Not like you," as he's being swallowed up by that chemical. And Joker looks over and says, "Nobody's like me. That's the real joke. No one else could have survived this chemical bath. I'm 1 in a million, baby. And you, Jason, you're just not that special." And like that, round 1 goes to the Joker. Now round 2 starts, and man, it's about to get crazy. The dialogue continues from Jason Todd that says, "Barely time to think what form. There's another person who defined me, and that's Batman. Some people will only ever see Robin." And Joker says, "So predictable, little bird. I figured why not take a stroll down memory lane together." And the Heart of Apocalypse says, "I choose the arena." And the dialogue says, "But not just any Robin, the Robin who died. So here and now, I'm rewriting my story." And we can see there's a bomb. The Heart could have chosen anywhere, but it chose this location. And we can see it chose the medical warehouse where Joker had kidnapped and beat the heck out of Robin with a crowbar. Joker's even wearing the same friggin' outfit, which is bananas. But Joker says, "I took it easy on you last time, boy blunder. This time, I won't be so nice." Dialogue says, "It must want to watch this rematch too, so let's do it." Robin charges in. Joker fires, but you can see he's easily dodging these bullets. And his inner dialogue says, "It's strange to be this young again. I forgot how angry I was then, full of fury." And he kicks Joker right into some boxes. He says, "Heart pounding in my ears. Adrenaline like liquid fire." A ton of boxes come falling, but he just leaps out the way. I mean, look at them calf muscles. And bam, right on the top of the head. No, bam, not again. Bam, this can't happen. This can't be how I lose. I'm not that kid anymore. Joker says, "You always look good in red." And that dialogue continues. Not innocent or forgiving. Time for another secret. Back then, I held back because I was worried if I fought back, I'd kill the Joker. And that kid, he would have rather died than disappoint Batman. And he catches the crowbar mid-swing, and he strikes Joker back. I don't give a flying F what Batman thinks now. I can let you die in the explosion, but payback's I'm not gonna say that on YouTube. But Robin stops the bomb and then goes to town on Joker. Like I said, people look at me and think Batman. I'm his doing, his scar. So this time, I'll fight like him, cold, controlled, break Joker bone by bone. He says, "Beg, Joker, beg." Joker says, "Please, kid, die." And as he takes a shot, Robin jumps out the way, but the bullet hits the bomb and everything blows up. And what's left of the wreckage is Robin walking out with the corpse of Joker. Round 2 goes to Robin. Now as round 3 is about to begin, we get this dialogue that says, 1-1, only one fight left. What form to pick? Think. The heart flashes moments before me. So much of my life defined by 2 figures, Batman and Joker. What's mine? What form? Red Hood. And then I remember my name. Sure, Joker was Red Hood once, but there were so many others. There were older gangs that used the name. because the Red Hood has always been a Gotham phrase, slang in the bad parts of town where kids like me grew up. The Red Hood did it, not me. Blame it on the Red Hood. Red Hood was the guy who did the thing, the bad thing in the shadows. My friends and I played Red Hood as kids. Whoever was Red Hood had to chase the others down, hunt them. I even used to draw him. The Red Hood was our boogeyman, the slums legend, an icon, a story much older than Batman or Joker. And I know then what form I have to take. A me years from now, a little older, maybe not as fast or strong, but wiser. A Red Hood with a long legend all his own. And just then, an axe comes crashing down, and it's none other than Joker as the Red Hood. Joker's always 2 steps ahead, man, I swear. And just for continuity, since now there's 2 Red Hoods, I'm still going to say Joker and Jason, just so people know who I'm talking about who aren't Die Hood fans and know the difference between the 2. So Joker's like, but whatever form you take, you'll never be more than a footnote. Dialogue says, I don't listen to him this time. And Jason hits him with a flamethrower. Joker tries to pull out a gun, but Jason tackles him. And in the process, Joker pulls out a knife and starts stabbing Jason repeatedly. Dialogue continues. I barely hear him at all. Is he laughing? Screaming? I don't know. He means so little all of a sudden. I'm not part of his story anymore. He's part of mine. And he's not my boogeyman. I'm his. He fights like an animal, and they fall into a grave, and they continue to go at it, like something caged, something guilty, and the guilty are who I chase, who I hunt. It's the executioner's hood, red for the blood of evil men. Just before he finally dies, I see his true face, and I don't care. And can we take a moment just to appreciate how brutal this revenge or this rematch really is? They are in a grave, fighting it to the death. I mean, you got Joker electrocuting Jason. Jason is kicking Joker with a blade. Joker is sticking a corkscrew into him. And then Jason's choking Joker while Joker is stabbing him. I mean, this is legit craziness, and I love it. Now we got Jason and Joker laying in pools of blood, but only one of them crawls out of that grave. And the dialogue continues. Victory? I guess. Lost a lot of blood. I feel lightheaded. Even if I die alongside him, I know I was not created by Joker or by Batman. I made myself. I'm my own hero. I am the Red Hood. I know he has some trick up his sleeve, some way to live on, but it doesn't matter because tonight and forever, we both know who really won. And as we see Jason die off at a grave, we also see a defibrillator machine, bringing Joker's heart back online. And Joker just laughs. And the 3rd round goes to the Joker. Now let's not forget, there is a whole fight going on inside the Watchtower now. Because right now, Booster Gold and Time Trapper are going at it. I'm sorry, not Booster Gold, I should say Darkseid. And he says, the fighters all move to the next round, Time Trapper. It's too late now. He slams his head against the glass. I want you to watch. You did this, not me. The fire pits are full. You thought you could hold me back. And now Earth is new apocalypse.
Now, as we jump back into the story, remember that the last time Superboy Prime, Lois Lane, and the Superman Superbots here, or one of the Superman Superbots, they're currently on a mission to get important information to Time Trapper that is supposed to help in this fight here against Darkseid. Now, that information here is that Doomsday was created as Krypton's alpha weapon specifically to stop Darkseid's Omega power, meaning that Doomsday is literally the key to stopping Darkseid's final god plan here. Now, we found out that information here back in issue number 31, something that we've covered on the channel. I'll actually leave the playlist down below. But what we do here in this particular issue is that we open up with a flashback to the Fortress of Solitude way back when Superman was first creating these Superbots with Kellex. Now, Kellex here is a Kryptonian robot that serves as Soup's primary assistant. Purpose here of this flashback was really to establish that, yes, these Superbots, they do have Superman's memories. Not all of his abilities, of course. They believe that they are the real Superman, But one thing of note here is that they do not, at least at this particular time, they did not have the same moral dilemma as Superman. That is something that they established here, meaning that they would choose self-preservation instead of sacrifice. And that, amongst many other moral dilemmas, is what kept them secret up until this time. But there was one message coming out of this here that says, we've witnessed firsthand how robots like these are corrupted and used. They can be dangerous. We need to keep them secret, hide them away. But I know that these creations will one day be heroes. And of course, it is some foreshadowing. So when we jump back here to present time, we see Superboy Prime, Lois, who remember just got her powers back here, and then one of those Superbots trying to get to Time Trapper. Now, communication here is down. They cannot reach Mercy, they cannot reach Mr. Terrific or anyone. The last message that they got here was that Titans were going to be evacuating the people on Earth, and then they would meet up with Mercy and the super ships here near the moon. But of course, we know if you've been following some of the tie-ins here with DCKO, we know that it did not quite go that well. The Titans have their own issues that they got to deal with right now. But as they're talking, what happens here is that this massive fire just comes down on him here. And when Lois is checking, she's like, yo, what the heck is that? That is when one of the Superbots says, they're fire pits here from Apocalypse. My X-ray vision shows me that Earth is transforming on a molecular level. Now, the reason why this is happening is because of what we saw happen at the end of DCKO issue number 3. And in the middle of this happening here, the Superbot, he hears, help, please. And he's like, yo, there are people that are still here. Because remember, up until this point now, everybody's supposed to be gone from Earth, except for these 3. So then, just like Superman would do, the Superbot takes off. To which Prime is not too happy. He's like, yo, dude, wait, we can't go on side missions right now. So what happens next here is that we quickly pan over to the Fortress of Solitude right now in present time. Now, these other Superman robots here, they were supposed to be keeping Sunboy frozen with their ice breath. But then, of course, what happens? Something comes in and then blows them up. And then when we see who it is Saturn Girl, Cosmic Boy, and then Lightning Lad here from the Darkseid Legion. To which Sunboy's like, damn, it took y'all long enough. But then Lightning Lad is coming in here with the ridicule, man. He's like, bro, I gave you one job. All you had to do was hunt down Prime and then you failed. To which Sunboy's like, you gotta be kidding me, right? If you could have taken down Prime yourself, if it was that easy, then why didn't you do it? To which Lightning Lad's, yeah, like he ran from the fight. Otherwise, I would have fried him. To which Sunboy's like, did he really run though? He led us right here to the Fortress of Solitude on purpose. And when Sunboy decided to blast Lois Lane, that is what allowed for her to be able to get her powers back. But while they're sitting there arguing, right, the Saturn Girl's like, all right, let me go explore here. And she starts off by saying, so this is the home of the great Superman, a place that he goes to be alone, away from people. Perhaps he's not as fond of those he protects in this time period as we thought. In the meantime here, Cosmic Boy, he sees Kellex, and then he's trying to grab him and then take information out of him. But then Kellex is like, yeah, Kellex programmed me here to never respond to threats. So Cosmic Boy continues to, waste his time here by trying to get information as to where Saturn Girl, she comes upon something that's a little bit fascinating to her here. Some Superman memorabilia here, and she sees it and then says, the Legion here was such an important part of Superman's past and future. He honors both, but they are not his army. They are his family. They exist because of him, and he because of them. Just as I am here because of Darkseid. Darkseid is the past and the future. He is now. He is all things. Therefore, he worships nothing. He does not care for anyone, including us. And then Lightning Lad comes in here all sentimental, grabs Saturn Girl's face, and he's like, I care, Imra. But Saturn Girl's like, yeah, you shouldn't. If the rest of the Legion knew, they would betray us. They would use it to garner favor from our Lord. You know that, Garth. But Lightning Lad is like, the fire pits burn bright. This earth is almost his. What happens then? What happens to us? To which he responds back, she's like, that is not for you and me to decide. And then this dude, Cosmic Boy, he comes out, he was like, sorry to interrupt, but I played a little bit too rough with Superman's toy. But then continues on by saying, poor Kellex, by the way, right? But then continues to say, but according to Sunboy, your targets escaped with information about Darkseid that they deem important, tucked away in some robot. They couldn't have gone too far, and Timberwolf said he can track him. So Saturn Girl's like, listen, let's chill with all that. Why bother chasing them when we know where they are going? So then what happens next here is that we kind of jump to see our final four that's currently remaining here in the DCKO tournament. Now at the end here of DCKO issue number 3, who we saw here as the remaining four are Superman, we have Lex, there's Diana, Wonder Woman, and then the Joker. So in this moment here, Lex mentions this to Superman. He's like, you know it was going to be us, didn't you? Or he's asking the question, you knew it was going to be us, didn't you? That no matter who we fought, you and I would find ourselves here. But then Superman's like, I fight to support my friends, Luthor. So Diana, she comes out and says, she's like, this is not real. As she's looking at Earth and she's looking at the fire, the pits of apocalypse, she's like, this is another arena created to manipulate us. But then Superman's like, nope, no, it's not. This is real. This is our world. But I hear something. Someone I did not expect. So then we jump back here to Superboy Prime, who is now caught up here with the Superbot. And he tries to tell him, he's like, yo, you got to slow down, man. The information that's inside of you right now, that could be the key to all of this. We need to get you to the Justice League Watchtower right now. But then the Superbot responds back and is like, but I got to save people first. But then Prime, this dude's a clown, man. He's like, dude, you're not even the real Superman. You're just some tool. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, like, you are a literal hard drive right now. But then the Superbot responds back and is like, but he programmed me to do what he would do. And that means that even when the world is ending, you still save lives. So it seems as if though, right, to fix that moral dilemma that the Superbots had before. So then the Superbot continues by saying, Prime, you are one of the most powerful people in existence. You should act like it. But Prime is like, yo, don't judge me, man. You don't know what I've been through. To which the bot responds back and says, I am not judging you. I may not be the real Superman, but I have access to some of his memories, including his thoughts on you. So when Prime asks the question, and let me guess, he hates me? The bot responds back and says, he does not. He is merely disappointed in you. Which kind of gives Prime some pause here for a second. And then he continues, the bot does, and it's like, I, the real Superman, wishes to help everyone, including you. You sometimes remind him of himself when he first learned about his powers and who he really was, how scared he was. But then Prime's like, I'm not scared. But then they finally get to the people here that were asking for help. But when they get there, they're like, I'm not too sure about this, because who they see is the Royal Flush Gang. Now, the Royal Flush Gang here are a group of supervillains. They're named Ace, 10, Jack, Queen, and King. You get it? The Royal Flush. But what they see here is that there's something different about them. But Prime doesn't all too much care here. He wants to go in for the fight. But the bot holds him back for a second and says, like, wait a minute. They're scared. So as they approach here, Queen says this. She's like, we heard the warnings, but we thought it was an opportunity to pillage. We didn't think it was really the end of the world. To which King then says, where are we going to spend money if the whole planet is on fire? So then what the group does here is that they bring them up, or they take them and they bring them up into space where those super ships are supposed to be. When they get there, they have a conversation with Mercy. And when they ask for where Time Trapper is, Mercy says, she's like, yeah, the last time I heard, he was still on the Watchtower. So then Superboy Prime is like, listen, y'all go, y'all head to the Watchtower. I'm going to go back down to Earth to be, or to find this dang tournament. So Lois, she tries to stop him for a second there. She's like, yo, Prime, not everything has to be about fighting, man. You can come with us. We need your help here. But Prime is like, you got powers again, Lois. Just drop off the robot. You'll be fine. Fighting is what I'm good at. So I'm going where I'm needed. And you don't need me. You need Superman. So when they get to the Watchtower, right? First, she tries to communicate here with Mr. Terrific on comms and tries to tell him that they have information here for Time Trapper. But currently, as we know, well, if you don't know, the Justice League right now, they're kind of charging through hell. Like literally, the Justice League team is currently in hell. We haven't covered that series in a while here. If you want us to, or if you want to just kind of have an idea, I can always share or shed some light on that. Just let me know. But what the Superbot then sees as they get over to the Watchtower, he's like, yo, there was some fighting. There's some stuff that was going on here. So Lois mentions, she's like, Clark said that Time Trapper, Gorilla Grodd, Word Forger, and Booster Gold, that they were trying to slow Darkseid's return so that they could obtain the Omega Energy to beat him. But as they look on, they don't see any signs of them here at all. And then when they get a little bit closer, she's like, yo, what happened? And that's when they hear this voice. we were betrayed. And when they look over, it's the voice here of the Time Trapper just laying on the ground. Man, ain't in good shape at all. Which, of course, as we know, we've been seeing here through DCKO, we've been seeing here through the tie-ins, and of course that they've been fighting back and forth here with Darkseid, or Booster Gold, who is actually Darkseid. So then Time Trapper says this, he's like, we lost. All is lost. Booster betrayed us. To which Lois is like, Booster, how? And that's when Time Trapper explains he is Darkseid in disguise. The Omega energy inside of him was merely a piece of Darkseid controlling him. Grodd and the Word Forger, they fled. We have failed. So then Lois is like, hold on for a second. There is something that you need to know, Time Trapper. Look. And that's when she points here over to the Superbot. So the Superbot's like, yo, hello, Doomsday. So as Time Trapper says, this is not Superman. The Superbot's like, I've been told that many times, but I believe that even you can see that not everyone is what they appear to be. So Time Trapper's like, okay, what do you mean? There is very little that I do not know. What could you possibly reveal to me? But before, of course, he could reveal that information, here comes in this big ass explosion. And of course, who else could it be, guys, other than Darkseid's Legion? Saturn Girl, Cosmic Boy, Lightning Lad. And Saturn Girl, she comes in and is like, if it isn't the great Superwoman, I saw you in your husband's mind. He thinks about you a lot, as you also think about him. You worry. Is that what love really is? Worry? But then Sunboy here and Lightning Lad, oh yeah, I forgot to mention, yeah, Sunboy's here too. Lightning Lad says this, right? As they're kind of holding down Time Trapper here. Lightning Lad's like, yo, Time Trapper is on the ropes, Imra. You want us to kill him? But then she's like, no, of course not. I want to know why they brought this robot to him. Open your mind, Lois. Let the truth out, or I will rip it out. But then Cosmo Boy's like, hold on for a second, I can help. Maybe I'll have better luck with this one than the last robot, as he sort of kind of starts taking control here of the Superbot. So then Saturn goes like, no, hold on. Let's make it a contest. You try to get the information out of the robot, and I'll make Lois watch and see if she cracks first. And the fact that she's like holding and pulling her heel while she says that, which is like an example of the proverbial cat fight, right? Like that aspect is actually kind of funny to me. So they continue on here with these shenanigans, man. And then Saturn Girl, as she's like still holding Lois's hair, she says this as Lois is screaming, no! He's like, at first I thought that you just cared about the information in the robot being destroyed, but you also worry about the robot itself. So then she says, go again, Cosmic Boy, and he does just that. But then there's this boom that comes in, and Saturn Girl's like, yo, what is that? And as they look over here, who else is it but Superboy Prime, as he comes in and says, look into my mind, Imra, see my fears if you dare. That once upon an event, I lost control and killed a bunch of people. Ever since I returned, I've been afraid of losing control and that happening again. So I've held back. But now that you've messed with my new BFF, Lois Lane, and he's saying this, by the way, after knocking out Cosmic Boy here and Sunboy. And then he says, I'm done holding back. It's effing prime time, baby.
Now this starts off with kids having fun at a birthday party. And Heart of Apocalypse says, in the split second before the next round begins, Clark hears screaming, the screaming of children, his muscles tense. But then he realizes the children aren't screaming with fear or pain, but with joy. The world they live in is peaceful and safe and thriving. Is it Earth? It is. He sees. But somehow, it's also him, Superman. He's in every particle, every atom. And then he understands. This is the vision, the one he had on the way into the tournament. This is the universe as it could be if he wins. The universe bent towards him, shaped by him. If he takes the crown and keeps it, a place where people live in harmony, a shining symphonic civilization, brave and hopeful, reaching out, hands open. He wants to look away, but he can't. The beauty is too much. And then he wakes up. Lex is like, good dream, Superman? Me? I had a damn great one. Just then, the rest arrive, ripped from their own vision. A techno-utopia, a universe aglow with truth, a black laughing void, a grand sculpture of will, a dark wonder, a kingdom of peace. Superman is like, are we all that's left? Wonder Woman responds, it seems that and she's interrupted by the Heart of Apocalypse. Welcome, champions, to the third round of the tournament. In pursuit of victory, Darkseid occasionally allied himself with unexpected beings. So for this battle, you will fight in teams. Each of you must choose a partner. Wonder Woman's like, from where? Among ourselves? And the Heart responds, no, from among them, the fallen champions. There is one of you, though, who has generated more Omega energy than the rest, and so will get to choose a partner from all realms of reality. And that champion is Joker. And he's like, I love this game. But the Heart continues. For the rest, the choice stands before you. You can choose a former foe or an ally. You can choose for wisdom, strength, or chaos, but choose quickly, or the choice will be made for you. The Heart then says, Clark is the last to decide. I am just about to choose for him. When he takes his partner, fresh off a brutal round of one-on-one battles, all fights to the death, the victors emerge into the next challenge. And this is where things get insane, because we have 2-on-2 battles that are tremendous team-ups. Guy and Hal versus Superman and Shazam, Lex and Supergirl versus Aquaman and Hawkman, Wonder Woman and Big Barda versus Cyborg and Connor Hawk, which, if you don't know, is the second Green Lantern. But then we have Zatanna and John Constantine, and Joker and his mystery partner. So look, in Area 1, Guy's like, look, I know what you're thinking. Yes, there were way better choices. More powerful, smarter, handsomer. But hey, I always choose my friends. And Hal's like, I'm touched. Superman's like, well, are we doing this? And they take off charging. Guy's like, no hard feelings when we kick your asses. Superman says, course not. But that's not going to happen. Right, Billy? And Billy's like, oh, hell no. And Superman's like, language. And it's funny to me they always remind you he's a kid because he's like, sorry, but Superman, thanks for the second chance. Meanwhile, in Area 2, you can see Hawkman and Aquaman are talking it out, and he's like, brought me back for a rematch, huh? And Aquaman says, you're a true warrior, Hal. I'm honored to fight alongside you. C and A are brothers. And he's like, Air and C. But yeah, these two are always in competition. Lex is like, how sweet. All right, Kryptonian, let's finish them. And you can see in her face, she is not happy. And she sends Lex flying. She's like, you seriously thought I'd fight alongside you? Well, I want a new team up. How about it? Arthur, Carter, all of us against him. And Hawkman's like, now you're talking. In Area 3, Berta and Wonder Woman are like, let us unleash the fury of the gods on these mortals. Cyborg is like, you're one of the deadliest fighters in the world, Connor. And now that I just infuse you with nano enhancements, they won't know what hit them. And that is friggin' crazy to give him nano enhancements. I don't think people realize how deadly his hand-to-hand skills are. But anyway, in Area 4, we have Zatanna and Constantine. And she's like, eyes on the prize, John. And he says, hell of a date you brought me on, love. And she screams, well, Joker, who did you choose? And he says, oh, you know me. I just love to laugh. So I figured, why not pick someone who loves to laugh too? And this man brought an absolute menace to the field. Zatanna's like, the Batman who laughs. And Constantine's like, yeah, I'm not liking this date after all. But they quickly chain these two up. And Constantine's like, hang on, this doesn't smell like dark multiverse. Trust me, I know a con when I see one. And Joker says, the jig is up, old friend. And the Batman who laughs says, the looks on their faces. Joker says, I know how much you love a good trick. So let's play an old favorite, shall we? Go on now. Show them who you really are. And he responds, all right, if you insist. And he snaps. And Joker says, so kids, what's better than a king? And the person reveals himself, an emperor. Emperor Joker, that is. And I feel we all owe Scott Snyder an apology because we were pissed when we didn't see Emperor Joker during the fight with Red Hood, and now we see why we didn't. And he's holding, I'm not even gonna try to pronounce his name because they keep changing the pronunciation of his name and everything. But Emperor Joker's like, now that's funny. Come on, Not one laugh? Fine, I'll laugh for you. Abracablam. And he sends them flying. Meanwhile, Wonder Woman is sending Big Bertha flying with her lasso of truth. And even Green Arrow's like, did Wonder Woman just throw a new god at us? And Bertha's like, she did. I mean, this man had to ask. He's like, I appreciate you picking me to be your partner, Cyborg. But why not pick someone stronger or with magic? And Cyborg says, I'll show you. He's like, what are you doing? And Cyborg says, like I said, you're one of the deadliest fighters in the world, but I picked you because of how you're deadly. The style of fighting you studied at Ashrams. It's all about human impulse and unpredictability, right? Surprise. Perfect for going up against traditional warriors. And once I scan your skills and absorb them, I can fight just like you. And Green Arrow's like, and with your enhancements, I'm as strong and fast as you. Twin Titans. Cyborg says, exactly. Now let's win this thing. Now you can see Constantine and Zatanna got their hands full. Emperor Joker's like, don't you get it? I'm trying to help you both. Magic is supposed to be fun. I just want to see you smile. And things are getting very weird very fast. Zatanna's like, John, those constructs. And he says, I feel it too. They're like some kind of bloody visual norm toxin. She says, exactly. Just keep your eyes on him, John. And you can see someone's laughing. She turns and says, John, and he says, sorry, love. I just thought of something really funny. And you can see he's been turned into a Joker. Now, these two are taking this twin thing a little too serious because they're both dropping the same exact kick with the same exact leg. And Cyborg's like, not bad for mere mortals, huh? And Wonder Woman's like, barter, punch me as hard as you can. And she's like, I thought we were on the same team. Wonder Woman responds, we are, just do it. She says, all right, Diana, but this is gonna hurt. And when she does, you know exactly what Wonder Woman's gauntlets do. They send everybody flying. She says, was that why you chose me, Diana? My strength? Wonder Woman says, no. You were trained in the fire pits of Apocalypse. You know the way of war there. I need you to tell me everything you know about the heart of Apocalypse now. Just then, Emperor Joker says, this has been fun, kiddo, but it's time for the curtain to fall on your act. And then he casts a spell. Look into madness. Zatanna's like, John, I can't turn away. And just then, she's turned into a Joker herself. Now, don't forget Superman, Shazam, and the Green Lanterns are going at it because it's an all-out brawl right now. Hal's like, I like the will. I'll give you that much. Superman sends him flying and he's like, I'm sorry, Hal. Hal responds, don't you dare do that. Omega Energy, remember? It's funny though. I think a lot of us figured you'd be the one to beat Clark, which is why for my one item, I brought this. And the short version of what this is, it's called a Black Mercy, and it attaches to a host and puts it into a dormant dream state. So basically, Superman's out of the competition right now in a dream. Not eliminated, just dreaming. Now, in the midst of all this, Supergirl is beating the DNA out of Lex right now. And she's like, why in your wildest dreams did you think I'd side with you? And Lex always has a plan. He says, because of this. And we all know from previous issues what he has in his chest. Aquaman says, Kara, what? She screams, red kryptonite. It makes us rage. Cousin, I'm sorry. But he can't even hear right now because he's in a dream state. See, he's still dreaming about that game night he had with Batman and Wonder Woman and Lois. And, she's like, get out there and be Superman. But the Mercy takes the dream too far, to the point that it's even in the future. And it realizes in this place, he doesn't just fix the present. No, here, Superman, fixes everything. The future, and even the past. But how? Suddenly someone is coming through time to meet him. But who? And then they arrive. His parents, Jor-El. Clark has never felt such peace, never felt so whole. Lois' words come back to him. Get out there and be Superman. The memory fills him with rage. Rage at Hal, at the cursed plant, at the dream, at me, at the game itself, but also at the truth, because that dream could be his reality. It could be our reality. Why shouldn't he win at all? Fix everything. Why shouldn't we want him to? With the world falling apart, the doomsday clock at midnight, don't you want him to save us all? I do. And in this moment, Clark wants to. Wants it with the burning of 1,000 roaring suns. And you can say whatever you want, but the two things you don't want is a motivated or a pissed off Superman. Now, Kara's out here looking like Honey, I Blew Up the Kids. And Aquaman's like, Kara, damn it, listen to us. And Lex is just comfortably leaning here like, I'm afraid that's not going to happen. I spliced red kryptonite with silver to heighten delusions, added a speck of black to cause violent disassociation, and he's interrupted by what I believe is his inner thought that says Designer K. And so man held dominion over air and sea. But back to the Superman fight, because as the lanterns are down, he stands over Billy and says, Billy, I'm sorry I brought you into this. Billy's like, don't be sorry. Like I said, you gave me a second chance. That's who you are. And the Heart of Apocalypse says, is it though? He told himself he chose Billy to give the boy a second chance. But was there another reason? There was. He knows it. And behind him, Hal and Guy are getting to their feet. They're about to use their rings to craft green kryptonite. Synthetic, an old trick, but effective enough. Clark can sense it. And Superman says, Billy, I also chose you because of what you can do with your powers. For others. The boy realizes what Clark means, smiles, and says the word, Shazam! And as the lanterns are blinded by this light, Guy's like, Lord, someone turn down the power. And as we see Superman has become a Shazam, he says, how about we turn it way up? And everyone's shocked. I mean, the lanterns are like, oh, shoot. They tried to put up a double reinforced shield, and I mean, Superman demolished it. And then beamed them so bad, the only thing remaining are their rings. And the whole time, the Heart of Apocalypse is saying, he takes them out in seconds. But as he does, he wonders, was it this place? Am I getting to him? The dark, twisted Heart of Apocalypse. The way I seem to get to Captain Atom. In this moment, Clark doesn't know, but it feels damn good to win. Across the way, he sees Lex as one too, but there's something in Lex's look. Something Clark isn't sure he has ever seen in those eyes before. Admiration. Round 3 is over. Congratulations. Only you 4 champions remain. Time for round 4. Joker's like, round 4? Here? Now? But, and he's interrupted. Yes, now. But not here. And they're transported. The penultimate round will take place here, on a world that belongs to the King Omega Darkseid. And Joker says, nice. So the next round takes place on Apocalypse, huh? My kind of place. Lex says, no, you idiot, this isn't Apocalypse. Superman says, Lex is right, this is Earth. Wonder Woman says, but how? We were still fighting. And the Heart responds, seems you ran out of time, Diana. So yes, this is your Earth, but you are no longer its champions. They are. Now let the fight begin. And oh man, I cannot wait for the next issue. I think we all know who Wonder Woman and Superman are going to be fighting with the Absolute Universe, but I'm thinking Joker's going to go against Batman, and Lex is going to go against Darkseid, aka Booster Gold. And I need you guys to comment right now who is winning which rounds between these guys, between the Absolute Universe and the Prime Universe, because things are going to go crazy with this final.
We get a lot of dialogue from the Heart of Apocalypse. It says, now we come to it. The penultimate battle, and the champions are ready, more than ready. Why? Because this round, they're not fighting other champions. They're not fighting heroes, friends. No, they're fighting imposters. That's how they see the Dark Trinity before them. Younger, bigger, but imposters just the same. And the combatants of the King Omega tournament have fought imposters many times before. But these imposters hail from the Absolute Earth, where Darkseid is king. His essence infused into every atom, every cell. But with this Earth belonging to Darkseid, it begs the question, who are the real ones now? In this arena, there's only one way to find out. And just like that, Absolute Superman's charging in like, die! The blast hits Clark with the micro-concentrated heat of a supernova. It's as if the boy can channel the sun's energy through his gauntlets. But the cape is what really catches Clark off guard. It's like cosmic dust the young fighter can shape, and the dust itself, it's from Krypton. Diana pulls him off, but before she can lock in the chokehold, here comes Absolute Wonder Woman with her sword and Pegasus. Meanwhile, Luthor's suit has enough energy left in it for one more big blast. The person coming at him is just Batman though, so he opts for elephant tranquilizers.
And when Batman dodges all those, Luthor opts for plan B. He's like, shoot him, Joker. And with one swing, Absolute Joker sends Lex flying. And then he looks at Joker and he's like, well? And Joker's like, actually, I'd like to switch sides. Dark Booster's like, what? You can't. You will forfeit your chance to win the tournament. Joker says, I mean, I got to kill Batman with a bang. So I'm good. And Dark Booster says, very well. Oh, great hearts. And a heart says, so with a blast of my own, a new kind of parademon is born, grinning from ear to ear. And I gotta say, this man Joker always is doing some backstabbing and getting a new form. But Superman's like, Booster, who are these beings? Wonder Woman says, Cal, when I asked Barter about the Heart of Apocalypse weakness, she said that the heart, it corrupts. Lex responds, what are you saying? That we appeal to these creatures' gentler nature? And Dark Booster says, they have no gentler nature. This is what they were born for, and now they have fulfilled their destiny. Wonder Woman's like, and what about you, Booster? Lex says, I heard from Grodd that we were betrayed, but I never would have guessed it was you. And Dark Booster says, don't blame poor Booster. He isn't at fault. My will is undeniable. And Superman picks up right away and says, Darkseid? And he responds, nice to see you again, Kryptonian. Now, my horsemen, kill them all. And just then, Absolute Wonder Woman's like, run her down, Pegasus. Prime Wonder Woman's like, thank you. After all this time, I finally get to lasso an actual horse. I don't understand why she couldn't do that before, but yeah. She's like, talk to me. When my lasso touched you, I sensed nothing but Darkseid's essence. There must be more. And Absolute Wonder Woman says, you know, I have a lasso too. It's called Sacrifice. And she wraps it around her arm and transforms herself into that kaiju form and says, and it doesn't just make people talk. At the same time, as Clark and the boy rocket towards each other yet again, Clark scans him on a cellular level. Nothing. All three of these beings know what he knows, wants what he wants. There's nothing to them but him, Darkseid. And then, the two Supermen collide with the power of 52 megatons. Clark is barely able to reabsorb the energy to protect his allies from being obliterated. And Absolute Superman is like, is this the best you can do? And across the way, Joker's like, hello neighbor, mind if I borrow some kryptonite? And he rips it right out of Lex's chest. Lex is like, Joker, you. And Joker throws the kryptonite and says, hey Bats, a gift from me to you. And what does Batman do? He rips off his horns and sticks the kryptonite to it. And then, like a ram, he just rams his head right into Superman's back. And just then we get some flashback and dialogue, and Diana's like, nice sportsmanship, Bruce. And he says, what? I didn't see him there. Clark says the guy who's been cheating all game. Bruce is like, what? I don't cheat. Clark says, really? You need to roll a 4, you get a 4. You need to roll a 2, you get a 2. Don't tell me you're not using some bat gadget. Bruce responds, all right, you want the truth? And as Absolute Batman is going in for the kill on Superman, Joker says, wait, let me do it. I've always wanted to kill a Superman. The flashback continues, and Bruce says, the truth is, I learned the precise imperfections in the dice the first few times I held them. It's a technique I learned in my training years. So yes, I roll what I want to roll, but it's not cheating. It's called being Batman. Just then, Wonder Woman's like, what in? And the heart says suddenly, they all feel it. Someone coming into the competition. Joker feels it most of all, right in the chest. And Batman says, bang. And there's one thing about Batman for sure. That man is petty and always gonna get his lick back because Joker just went out the same way he took Batman out. And you can see Superman's face. He's like, Batman? How? And Batman explains, before we entered this competition, I wired a mother box to my heart. So if I died, I'd be transported out. The heart made me fight my way through heaven and hell as a punishment for cheating. Superman's like, you mean as punishment for being Batman? Absolute Superman is pissed. He's like, how touching. Batman's like, who's the kid? Superman responds, he's Darkseid. They all are. And Batman says, then go get him. I'll take this one. And we all wanted Batman versus Absolute Batman.
and we finally get it. Absolute Batman's like, let's do it, rich boy. And Batman says, you know, I fought a lot of Batman lately, but that is the ugliest bat symbol I've ever seen. And as he bulks up, he goes, how's it looking now? And Batman says, it's growing on me. And man, yo, the size difference is so crazy. And as he's wailing and Batman's dodging, Batman's like, hold on, you've got something on your... And as Absolute Batman looks down, 2 smoke bombs go off. But whatever that was, Absolute Batman did not like it because his cape sends Batman flying. Across the way, Diana is tiring. There has been no rest between rounds. No break, only battle. She knows she and the champions must end this soon. And as she takes off one of the kaiju's heads, she says, enough tricks. Face me. There has to be more to you than this, sister. Than him. And she responds, there is only him, sister, and he is nearly here. Clark too feels his body tiring. These beings, they're younger, scrappier, but they're Darkseid down to the atom. And a blast of desperation, he intensifies his heat vision, ramping it up to 1,000,000 bursts per second. His hope is that the radiation will denature the boy's molecular structure, freeing him from Darkseid if there's anything to free. The tactic doesn't work, but the beams transform the boy's cape on an atomic level, melding, crystallizing the particles into a cage 1,000 times harder than diamond. Clark only has a split second to catch his breath. The piece is shattered by the voice again, so familiar. Fight, you insects, fight. And in that moment, all of Clark's anger focuses with laser-like clarity on a new target. Clark gives it everything. Every ounce of energy, physical, mental, spiritual. It's a punch that can break the world, even a god's concentration, at least for a moment. Just then, the absolute heroes are like, are we free? I think so, Batman. It was a nightmare, like being a passenger in your own form. And Superman says, he has no hold over you anymore. And as the absolute universe is thanking them, Superman says, thank us by joining the fight to defeat Darkseid. And Lex interrupts and says, joining the fight? Look at you heroes. You think it's that easy? Superman says, what are you saying, Luthor? And he explains, I'm saying you didn't free anyone, you fool. He let them go. Superman says, why? And Lex says, why? He doesn't need them anymore. Just then, we see 2 hands start to rip open Dark Booster's mouth. And he says, because he's here. And it's none other than Darkseid himself that says, greetings, champions. They look at each other, these heroes from Twin Earths, and they know that they're at the end now. The final round is all that's left. For a split second, Clark's mind goes back to that night, that game, the moment when they were each a few squares from the end of the board, one move away from winning, the finish line. All that was left to do was roll the dice. And I think we all wanted this to happen. The Prime Universe, the Absolute Universe, friggin' working together. But the heart continues and says, and so they do. They take their turn together. But just like that night, the turn ends before any winning happens. Red fills the room. Red fills the sky. Red fills everything until they're all gone. Diana, Bruce, the heroes from another world. Clark roars, fighting through the blast, burning but alive, willing his cells to hold. Maybe it's the Omega energy he has accumulated. Maybe it's the knuckles that charged him back in round 1, the extra bit of solar energy he absorbed. Or maybe it's something else, something more. But Clark has just enough to push through. He says, is that all you got? Is that it? And Darkseid responds, impressive, Kryptonian. Now go on. I'm waiting. It's then that Clark notices Luthor behind him. He must have shielded Lex from Darkseid's beam. Superman says, come on, Luthor. Let's do this together. You heard him. He's waiting. And we get a flashback of when this whole thing started and Superman's looking out the window and he's like, my God. And Lex says, he is waiting, Superman, for a winner. And Superman yells, no, Luthor. And it's at this moment that Lex uses his suit's one final blast to win. And so it is done. we have our King Omega. The tournament is over. But there is something major you guys might want to stick around for, because we jump to the future, and this happened actually before the tournament began, in a time of Legion and darkness, a future world where Saturn Girl goes to talk to the King Omega herself. She says, "You called for me, King Omega?" And he says, "You were correct. Don't be afraid. You served me well, Saturn Girl. I can sense my enemy's efforts to stop me from completing my work. And so it is time you understand what is to come. Before I created this place, I was just a god, one of many within the fourth world. But I knew I needed to be more, that all destinies led me to this direction. I killed and I stole. I destroyed what I hated and what I loved. Those Omega acts were not sacrifices. They were nothing in the grand scheme in the order that I demanded. Killing all of the celestial beings gave me the Omega energy to create a world in my image, a reflection of Earth Zero, with my presence in every cell. But this past moment you witness here eludes me. That point in their history, the present in their eyes, is unwritten. My creations there resist. They retain free will from my destiny. Saturn Girl says, "Do you wish for me to go back to that moment and kill them?" And he says, "No. Go to the near future where they are weaker and retrieve them. Do not engage with their present." She says, "The walls between our worlds' timelines are strong." "I will," he responds. "This world is so much more than a time or a place. Indeed, it is more than just a world." And as we see the Trinity being caught, he continues, "It is a weapon, one that I will use when the time is right. But first, I will use it to create fear within those who dare to defy me." And Saturn Girl's like, "May I present your horsemen, the heralds of your return, shadows of your creation, perfect for your Omega sanction to control." And he says, "You have done well, Saturn Girl. Now, I can feel the heroes plot to challenge me. They believe they can build Omega energy as I did, control the heart of Apocalypse, crown themselves King Omega." She says, "I will go with your legion and stop them." He says, "Let them continue. Their efforts are in vain. As they struggle, they will merely fuel the fire pits of Earth and light my way back. You will instead find me a vessel to possess." She says, "Of course, as you wish." He says, "You are my most loyal servant. You must be rewarded. Look into my mind. Gaze into its depths." She responds, "I would never dare. I doubt I would even be able to process what I witnessed." He says, "Do it." She says, "Of course." And the heart's dialogue says, Saturn Girl could not find the words to describe what she saw. It was more than the past, present, or future. It was beyond darkness. In that moment, she understood something, a single phrase that haunted all who heard it. Darkseid is. Imagine not hearing those words, but feeling them within your cell, your being knowing its truth. Saturn Girl saw that Darkseid would always win, that in the end, there would be nothing. All of life, past, present, and future, are meaningless. There is only Darkseid. But for a moment, she saw a glimpse of something else, a light that shined, a creation of a different kind.
So where this picks up here is that we open up with Doomsday, aka Time Trapper, narrating here, and we see where Superman had asked him a question back then. He was like, "Why should I trust you?" And the narration starts here by Time Trapper that says he shouldn't have. Our history has locked Superman and me into a cycle of death and rebirth. And death and rebirth here is going to be a theme throughout this comic. And it says, "It is all that we are. I tried to warn him that the end was coming, that the future would change and not for the better. He refused to listen to me. He knows the truth, that I am only a creature of death. And as much as I hate to admit it, I need Superman, but he is gone, fighting in a tournament to save us all. And now I find my last hope in a breed of Superman I did not expect." Now, who he's talking about here is Superboy Prime and then Cyborg Superman. And Prime right now is going crazy on the Legion of Superheroes, and then Cyborg Superman is in the mix trying to complete the mission, which, as a reminder here, the mission is to get a message to Time Trapper. Now, Prime is wilding out here, man, telling Lightning Lad, prepare to get your head knocked off, loser lad, to which Lightning Lad's like, man, I wanted to kick your ass since we met. Both of these dudes are unhinged at this point. And in the meantime here, Cosmic Boy is yoking up Cyborg Superman and goes, what do you think that you're doing? You're literally Superman's robot butler. You're all metal, and metal is at my mercy. And he's cracking Cyborg Supes here apart piece by piece, trying to crack open his processor because he knows that it holds the secret to stopping the final god, Darkseid. That's the message that Cyborg Supes wants to get to Time Trapper. And then meanwhile here on the other side of the battlefield, Lois, who has Zod's powers right now, is getting worked over by Saturn Girl. Now, as we know here, Saturn Girl is mentally connected to Darkseid. She can literally see what's happening in the tournament in real time, and she tells Lois what's going on. She mentions Superman battled valiantly, fighting his friends, stealing powers from them, winning. He truly believed that only he could hold the power, defeat my lord, and reshape all of reality. He was so close to the crown of King Omega, abandoning his humanity, becoming Darkseid. Then he had to face the Horsemen of the Absolute, champions from my world. Just as he thought that he had overcome the danger, he was betrayed. He lost. Superman is dead. He has fallen, just like your world will. To which Lois, with tears in her eyes, is like, you're lying. To which Saturn Girl is like, what did you expect to happen? Your husband trusted Doomsday, the creature who killed him. Accept the situation, Lois. Hope is gone. Darkseid wins. All because your husband made a mistake, because Superman believed. And right at that moment here, that's when Lois, she tries to beam Saturn Girl, but Saturn Girl is like, come on now, I'm in your head, Lane, in more ways than one. I know what you plan to do before you even do it. You can't win. And then she smacks the crap out of Lois. So Lois crashes down. And Saturn Girl's all too impressed with herself. She's like, wow, I rarely hit anyone. And then she says, your skin is still as hard as a rock. So Lois is like, I'll use every last bit of these powers to stop you. And then she charges back in at Saturn Girl again. To which Saturn Girl is like, I love that no matter how scared you are, you keep pushing back. You worry about your children. You worry about your whole world. But deep down, you're selfish. You'd brush that all away just to hold your husband again, to fly with him another day, and you never will. To which Lois like, all right, if that's the best that you got, then if you really want to show off, then go deeper into my mind and tell me what you see. And just then, Saturn Girl does just that thing. And just then we get this gorgeous double-page spread. We see all of Lois's memories swirling around, her wedding to Clark, holding their baby, flying together, all of it. But then simultaneously, we also get Saturn Girl's as well, which is a surprise to her because she sees memories of her and Lightning Lad. And that's when Saturn Girl says, our minds are so connected that some of my memories are revealing themselves to you, seeing you with Clark. And she's like, I, to which Lois explains, she's like, you know more about love than you let on. And that's when something happens, because as they come out of it, this is when Saturn Girl says, for the first time in years, I can't hear Darkseid's voice. So then Lois is like, then listen to me instead. You can help us. Take us to Superman, help him. He can defeat Darkseid and free you for good. But before we could see that moment come to completion, here comes in Superboy Prime. Now at first, what he does here is that he saves Cyborg Superman. Then he knocks Cosmic Boy away, crack, while telling him to go grife yourself. That's an interesting insult. And at the same time, he's holding Lightning Lad's neck. And then he says this, let's give the people what they want, Lightning Lad, or is it Live Wire? Doesn't matter. One by one, I'm going to snap your necks, starting with you. And then that's when Saturn Girl comes in and is like, don't, please don't kill Garth. He's just don't. And I'm like, bro, we just saw this man in the last issue say, I'm done holding back. I'm thinking this man's about to stop holding back, like he's about to go off, but he doesn't. Joshua Williamson, why won't you let us see Prime go off, King? Man just keeps on playing with our emotions, fam. So what does Prime do? He's like, all right, whatever. He kicks off Lightning Lad and is like, you're lucky I'm not that guy anymore. But we kind of want that guy again. So that's when Saturn Girl, she grabs Lightning Lad and is like, all right, listen, Legion, we got to hop on up out of here. To which Cosmo Boy is like, yo, you got to be insane. You know that Darkseid, that dude's going to be pissed. To which Sunboy is like, listen, the last god tasked us with stopping Time Trapper and any threat to his return. You heard his true voice, Saturn Girl. You know there is no place that we can hide. Darkseid will find us. And then she says, I have hope. As they disappear, boom. So then in the aftermath of this here, Time Trapper's like, you know what? Like, this victory kind of doesn't really matter. You heard Saturn Girl. Superman lost. Our best chance is to run right now. Escape into the distant past and then to keep on running. But then Prime's like, hold on for a second here, because the cyborg Superman, he got a message for you. To which Time Trapper's like, bro, I have been to the ends of time and back. I have seen the past and the future. There is very little that I do not know. So it's in that moment here where cyborg Superman, he goes off. And that's when we see Lara Levon. And she's like, Doomsday, I come bearing revelations as to your true origins. You were created on Krypton, and you know that. You believe that you were created to destroy Darkseid, but Darkseid is the Omega, and you are the Alpha, the end and the beginning. You are more than death. You were not created only for destruction. Your powers of resurrection represent second chances. And then there's this zoom in here on Superboy Prime's face as she continues to say, I wish everyone had that opportunity. Because what is this for Superboy Prime, right? Other than his redemption arc, his second chance to prove himself. But then she continues on. She's like, death, rebirth, death, rebirth. You are the embodiment of life eternal and the Alpha. Krypton never got a second chance. I hope that you can help my son give his adopted world one. And personally, I love this because Williamson has been building this specifically since the Justice League Omega Act special that was done back in October. As a matter of fact, we actually saw the opening of this here back in Superman issue number 20 when Time Trapper had showed up to Superman and said, yo, you gotta kill me or else something worse is going to happen. And as it pertains here to Doomsday, back in the classic origin here, Doomsday was created by an alien scientist named Bertrand who was experimenting on prehistoric Krypton, killing and recloning a creature over and over again until it could survive anything. That's always been his deal. Death and rebirth, death and rebirth. It's literally in his DNA and he cannot die the same way twice. But Williamson here kind of rewrote it. In the Omega Act special, we saw here where a young Lara, yes, Clark's mom, discovered that it wasn't just some random alien experiment, that Kryptonian scientists were involved, and buried beneath the surface of Krypton, they found what they call the ultimate weapon with an Omega symbol on it. Now we know, of course, that that means Darkseid. Darkseid is the Omega. He literally became Omega energy when he died, and that energy spread across the entire time stream that created the absolute universe. He is the end of all things. So what Krypton did to counter that, the Alpha, the force of resurrection, second chances, the thing that cannot stay dead no matter what kills it, that is Doomsday, but specifically to be the cosmic counterbalance here to Darkseid. And the person who knew, recorded that message, was Lara, who never got to tell her son because Krypton never got its second chance. And essentially it's like she's reaching through time to give the rest of the universe an opportunity to have their time. Personally, I just think this is brilliant storytelling here. So what happens after that message here is that we see Cyborg Superman, and he's flailing here, giving that classic, I've completed my mission, I can go now. But Cyborg Soups here and Superboy Prime, they kind of have this moment because Prime asked him the question. He's like, why did you fight Cosmic Boy? You could have just flown away. To which Cyborg Soups is like, I did what Superman would do. When you see the real Superman, tell him, but then he just goes. Which we know here that that message is 100% some foreshadowing, because it was mentioned here previously out on the interwebs that with Superman essentially now being gone, that Superboy Prime is going to be stepping in as the Superman for Earth, which is what is set up here. I believe that they're calling it the reign of the Superboy saga. And listen, any more Superboy Prime that I can get, I'm with it, okay? So with that, what Doomsday does next here, Time Trapper, he's like, okay, it's time. And when Lois asks the question, what are you doing? He's like, what I must, what I have avoided. If Superman has truly fallen, it is time I face Darkseid myself. No matter how large his army is, I have just enough power left for one last life. So what we do next here to close this out is that we shift over to the super ship out in lunar orbit, where we see Lois talking with Mercy Graves. And it's mentioned here that Earth's reality is unraveling from the tournament, that they've got millions of refugees on board, and Lois's powers, they're actually fading again here, but she's not really worried about herself. She's actually looking for her family. So what we see next here is that we see Jonathan and Martha Kent. Jonathan is there playing ball with some of the kids. We see Martha, who is currently comforting parents, saying to them, parents and parent, you're all doing great. One day you're going to look back at this and be proud of yourselves. But then when Lois finds them here, Jonathan asks a question. He's like, where's Clark? And Lois is like, yo, I don't know. And Jonathan tries to hold it together for a little bit here, but then he even admits, he's like, something about this just feels different. I feel like part of my heart has gone missing. And Lois is like, I know, but I'm not giving up hope. I know that he can do this. He'll come flying back to us like he always does. But then she shifts to this. She's like, there is someone I think who needs you as much as I do. Here is Superboy Prime. And as he walks in all shy, here comes Prime, and he's like, actually, I was hoping that you would call me Clark. All right, I'll give it to him. That last moment right there was touching.
Now this starts off with Lex already feeling himself. The heart is like, and so the tournament's winner is chosen. Lex says, ha, face me, Darkseid. Face this universe's champion, Lex Luthor. Darkseid's like, I'm right here, little one. Congratulations. Savor this moment. And then take the heart onto yourself. Gather your power. Adapt your new form. And fight for your crown. But just then, we jump back to that game night. And Bruce is like, is that Darkseid? And Clark responds, it is, but it's not. He's something new. I can hear him. He's not just here. He's everywhere. Bruce is like, I guess that's game over. And Diana's like, game over? Bruce? He responds, I was talking about the board game. In real life, it's time to win. Clark says, Lois, call the Justice League. She's like, I'm calling everyone. And as they all start the race, the heart says, they race towards the fight. Bruce, Diana. Except this time, at the window, Clark stops. Lois is like, Clark, what are you doing? Aren't you? And Superman says, I know you're here. And I know what this is. Show yourself. And it's none other than Time Trapper. He's like, Kal-El. He responds, Doomsday. It's like a bad date night for these two. Superman's like, Time Trapper, this isn't a memory, is it? You created a new timeline. This game night, it's not our future. It's a separate reality. It always was. And Time Trapper says, I had concerns whether I could trust anyone else in this quantum quorum or your allies. I suspected someone might be working with Darkseid, though Booster Gold's possession still surprises me. I created this pocket timeline to protect you if need be. And Soup's like, why just me? And Time Trapper tells him, as Doomsday and Superman, you have been locked in a cycle of death and rebirth for years now. I have always believed my role to be that of your destroyer. And yet, an unlikely source revealed the truth to me. I am not meant to destroy you, but instead to save you, so you can destroy him, Darkseid. It is time to break the cycle. Superman's like, what do you mean? How? The Time Trapper simply says, let me show you. And he does just that. As he continues, I have seen my share of endings, Kal-El. I have watched countless planets, universes, realities all die. I have channeled Omega energy, but I have also seen beginnings, universes being born. Instead of control, chaos, wild creative chaos. And I have channeled that energy to Superman, the opposite of Omega, alpha energy.
I have realized the way to stop this cycle we are on is that instead of granting you another ending, I must give you a new beginning. Superman's like, is that what you're offering? A second chance? Time Trapper says, I contain both Omega and Alpha energy. If I grant you all the power of creation inside of me, you may be reborn this one time instead of me. Superman says, you won't be able to return. Ever? Time Trapper responds, listen to me. If there is a being who is meant to be King Omega, it's you. Some think the universe already tries to bend towards you, that it's a metaverse rather than a multiverse, reactive to you, even if that is not the case. It should be. If I do this, you must promise me something. Superman says anything, and he says just one word, when. Superman says, I promise. Time Trapper puts his hand on his chest and says, then let's begin. And like that, we see countless Darkseids entering Superman, all the different types of creation. And with that, Time Trapper says, goodbye, Kal-El. And then the Heart of Apocalypse starts to talk to us. And it says, I don't hear it at first. Luthor is too busy yelling. Luthor's like the power I contain. Everything. The heart continues. But then I do. Something cracking. Something deep inside. And we see Superman's statue start to glow. All of a sudden, there's an explosion. Oh, if only I had a mouth to smile. And Lex is still feeling himself. He's like, so, shall we negotiate the terms of your surrender, Darkseid? Darkseid's like, I think I'll take my chances. And Lex says, then all that's left to say is, and just then, he's obliterated. And we see the shadow of Superman say, all that's left to say is, ding ding. And the heart says, we have a new King Omega. And we can see the excitement on Darkseid's face as he says, as I had hoped, Kryptonian, now don your crown. The heart says, and so Clark does. He reaches out and takes it, the role he was destined for. And the universe is reborn in his image. He's there in that very first explosion. There in every superheated particle of matter racing outward quarks and gluons. There in the beginning, dust and gas that collects into the first stars, and in the rocks that gather into protoplanets. He's there in the first life, single-celled things in the deep dark. He's there in the next forms of life, and the next forms, and the next. He is every stem, every trunk. He is the wet, quivering legs growing tall and strong, up towards the sun. Always the sun. He breathes in and out. 1,000,000 years pass. 100 million. He coaxes life higher and higher. Inside himself, he has remade our universe only better. When he has forged enough, he calls to me the heart, and I take my place inside his great chest. He is the universe's champion. It's King Omega. And now, let the war of kings begin. They fight across space, everywhere at once, battling through a world transformed by Darkseid. Not two beings, but two realities at war. Each punch Clark throws contains his baby universe, struggling to be born. He punches and punches, but in the end, Darkseid laughs. For a moment, Clark can't breathe. When he looks up, Darkseid is coming for the kill. I call out to him directly. We're one now, after all. Move, Clark. Dodge. And at the last minute, he does. And Superman got the glow up right now. Literally. And he's like, what? Where am I? And the heart says, the only safe place. I say, the past. Everything after this, the future, the present, they belong to Darkseid. Now catch your breath. Remember what you're fighting for. Can you see it? Superman says, I can. The heart says, good. Now build. And Clark does. He builds his universe's present. He leaves death, sadness, yes, but makes them notes in larger chords of wonder. He builds out harmonies, balances pain with empathy, connects power to wisdom, redrawing lines, stringing notes. It's beautiful. He was born for this. Omega surges through him. I'm so in awe, I don't even see Darkseid coming. I yell just in time. Clark, behind you! He ducks, slips to the past. And I love how they show an old comic strip. That's friggin' fire. But the blows come from everywhere. Fist, beams. Picture your universe, I tell him. Draw power from it. But Darkseid is too fast, too strong. Clark can only back away, ceding more and more ground. Another era becomes as Darkseid. In another, I feel myself convulse. Darkseid lands a hook. Across. Clark is a constellation, barely held together. Lines snapping between stars. Fight, damn it. Hold your ground. He grits his teeth, but doesn't answer me. He just retreats and retreats until finally, his back is against it. The Big Bang itself. The only thing left unclaimed by Darkseid. Move. You're cornered, I tell him. Which is when he finally answers. I'm right where I want to be. And then I realize, the Big Bang, this point, it contains everything. All matter, all possibilities, past, present, future. If he absorbs it all, takes it for himself, the Omega, he'll be as powerful as Darkseid. Ha! Ladies and gentlemen, we have ourselves a fight. And this form looks friggin' incredible. And Darkseid tries to pop out and say, there you are. But he's interrupted by a punch. And he's like, what did Superman says in Kansas? It's called playing possum. And I know you see Superman's crown. He's going nuts right now. The heart continues. I send all the Omega in me to his arms and fists. They go blow for blow. Punches that make whole galaxies shudder. Hit him, Clark. Now. Darkseid is bigger, stronger, but Clark is gaining. Superman's like, how long have we been fighting? The heart responds, 1,000,000 years, 100,000,000. No more rounds, no titles, just existence or annihilation. Keep going. Clark hits Darkseid so hard that black holes vomit starlight across the void. My fire pits roar. Yes, yes. Superman says, I can do this, can I? I can win it. Can you feel it? The heart says, I can feel it. Superman says, me alone. And the heart says, yes, you alone, the sole winner. Superman says, that's why I'm not playing anymore. The heart says, what are you talking about? Hit him, hit him. And Superman says, no. The heart says, why? Think of your universe. Look at it. A universe at peace, safe behind your shield, where everyone is legion. It's perfect, Clark. Perfect. It's what everyone wants. And as Superman starts to dig in his own chest, he says, maybe, but not me. The heart continues, no, don't. What will this gain? The blast might knock him back, what, months? A year? But you'll be back where you started. Worse. You can't do this. You can't quit. And Superman destroys the heart of Apocalypse. And then we see some familiar statues start to crack. As Superman says, for the record, I'm not quitting. I'm just tagging them in. And everyone from the tournament has been freed. And the heart finishes by saying, you fool, why? You had a chance to win. Why? And Superman responds, it's simple. Lois said it best. I like games where everyone wins. My name is Clark Kent. I am not a King Omega because we don't need one. No one hand should hold that much power because when only one person wins, none of us do. What we need is not one hand to save us, but many. Every hand, their hands, and yours too. Wonder Woman's like, thank you, Cal. You did good. Lex is like, good. You called that? And Batman's like, shut up, Luthor. But Superman says, you should go. The roof will keep you safe from what's about to happen. And Batman's like, you're leaving us, aren't you? He responds, I am. I have something I must do. But I'll be back. Now go on. Get to work. And then we get some dialogue from Superman that says, one last time, I think of my universe. Its whole gleaming arc still inside me. And then I undo it. Wind it back from its end to its beginning. Omega to Alpha. Until the whole thing exists in one single point. A contained creative explosion. Which I set free. I watch as its power strikes the world I love. A storm of alpha energy that ignites the earth again and again, setting strange new things in motion. And it's beautiful. Our world should always be one of wild beginnings and new starts. I know how tempting it is in the dark times to embrace Omega, to seek safety, to look to the old ways or some familiar savior. But let our story be the opposite. Let it be wild, dangerous, brave, explosive, terrifying, mysterious, twisted, full of longing, and redemption. Above all, let it be daring and take us to the next level and beyond. That's how we all win. And I think from this image, we're about to get a lot of new stories coming from DC. But it continues. And they're back at that game night where Lois says, you didn't have to come. And Diana's like, of course we did, Lois. Game night is game night. Bruce says, it's just a friendly visit to make sure you're okay. Lois responds, listen to me, both of you. You don't have to handle me with kid gloves. I know my husband. He told me he had one last thing to do. After that, he'll return to me, to us. I just wish I knew why he did it this way. And Bruce said, he did it to win. He won for all of us. She says, then we should keep playing this game. It's what he would want. And Bruce says, that's what worries me, Lois. We start Darkseid for now, but I don't think the game ever really stopped. And Superman's dialogue says, my old friend is right. And now the players move across the board in new ways. And we get a glimpse of exactly what Superman means. We see Mr. Terrific, who's like an explosion at the site of the tournament has imbued all of those in the vicinity with a concentrated mass of both Alpha and Omega energy. We see Booster Gold, who's still worried about Big Blue. We see none other than Superboy Prime, who is now Superman. We see the far future, where they're stuck waiting for someone to save them. We see Cyborg activating the Heart of Cyborg protocol. We see Lex doing what he does best, setting up a news conference to talk about his heroic actions. We see the Bat family, where it said Grandpa left the box so we could communicate with him if he beats Darkseid. But it's not working, Dad. It's receiving signals from other places he visited, other futures, other Batmans. And oh man, I'm curious to what that means. And then we get one interesting one where Superman says, and others are being pulled into new mysteries. And we know who this is in Central City, who says, I miss when I could use my powers to catch up. My history book. There's a whole new chapter here, but I didn't write this. You forgot my real story. You left me behind. I did the right thing and all of you took my world from me. And just then, his laptop blows up and he's like, what is this? And then we see it, bound by no relationships to Earth, to the Kryptonian, to anything. And Barry's like, good thing I made backups. But Darkseid continues, stop playing games with them. The Time Trapper sacrifice may have given Superman the ability to push me back. But you and I know the truth. The fools who oppose me have won neither the battle nor the war. My absolute creations are unfazed, undisturbed, for now. They and the rest of their world remain my weapon. And I have another army growing. As the fight raged on to generate Omega energy on their world, the infinite multiverse did the same. Alternates, deviations, Heroes and villains showing no mercy in their efforts to crown themselves the King Omegas of their world, each believing they could stop me. With each fight, the fire pits burn bright, and the Omega energy fuels me. Each will succumb to my will, my control, anti-life. Once the infinite Earths fall, there will be a crisis of absolute proportions. And man, this is setting up something crazy. Did DC just admit to a reboot? Because I'm kind of for it. Are we about to get other universes? Because I'm also for that after seeing what they've done with the Absolute Universe. And did Superman go back to do something to the Heart of Apocalypse? Because he did say we need your hand as well. So I'm highly confused what this last thing he has to do is. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Make sure to hit that like button and to boost this video so more people get to see this. And as always, thanks for kicking it with Keepin' It Comic. I'll catch y'all on the next one.